Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters.
Bingo.
And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English.
Soy ilegal.
They won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, you know, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
Hell yes.
Mr. President, the next time you have something to say about me,
Oh, girl, baby girl.
don't cop out through a racist and fake AI video.
Don't even play.
When I'm back in the Oval Office, say it to my face. Say it to my face.
Ooh, don't do it. Please don't do it.
In this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns and those who dig. Broadcasting from a Montana wilderness fortress at the headwaters of the Missouri, this is Matt Christiansen Live.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Matt Christiansen Live, a proud duct tape production for Wednesday, October 1st, 2025. Thank you for tuning in. Sitting shotgun tonight is our friend Robert, my former Bible study leader. Welcome back.
Saddle up, partner.
Glad to be back.
Robert, I swear I'm not trying to steal your look. People might wonder, Robert has been so influential on my life and my show. Maybe Matt is just borrowing his signature style. But I was worried tonight was going to be like looking into a mirror or like looking at a scruffy Mr. Clean kaleidoscope or something like that.
So I do have a bone to pick with you on this because you do have a full head of hair. So I
Thank you, but that is not true.
I consider you to be trans bald.
Maybe.
Identified as bald and chopped it off.
Yeah.
You know, next thing I know, you'll want to go into bald only spaces. I mean,
I didn't know the club was that exclusive, but you can be my ambassador when the time. I'm really trying to work my way into that, like shave it all the way off instead of just buzz it off. So once I'm ready, we'll talk. But in the news tonight, we are now officially 21 hours into
Government shutdown.
Congratulations on your survival, Robert. If you are listening to this show out there, I assume you have survived as well, at least for now. Maybe you're a government worker desperately crawling to the food bank in D.C., but they're all empty, and so you'll die somewhere along that trip. Hopefully there will be scraps for you somewhere. So we'll talk all things shutdown, of course, including Trump's so-called racist deepfake AI videos, otherwise known as memes, making fun of Democrats. Deepfakes are supposed to be convincingly real. I'm not sure any of these were supposed to be convincingly real, but okay, deepfakes. Although I thought Chuck Schumer's voice was pretty good. You heard it in the intro there. Whoever did the voice or however that was done AI-wise, I thought that was pretty impressive.
it's incredible.
Yeah. Remove the sombrero and mustache costume and the mariachi music. And it does sound convincingly like Chuck. But after we get through all that, I've been off for several Wednesdays now, I think 3 weeks. I have a backlog of your voicemails, your emails. We'll get through that to close the show. And yes, I said voicemails, a new feature for your interaction that I will explain momentarily. We kind of did a soft launch of that on the stream that was right after the Charlie Kirk assassination. And so we did a little bit of that, but I didn't really get a formal announcement of that. So it'll be fun to get into those more as we continue the Wednesday streams. Plus, of course, you can call the show the usual way as well. If you'd like to call the show live, you can do that through the Discord server linked in the description. There are instructions and help available on the server for you with producer Tim. We'll take your super chats as well to close the show. Got to say hello to our friendly listener-owned business for the evening as well, and that's our friends at Western razor company. We know we're being lied to on a daily basis by our government, by corporate media, and by razor companies too. Think about it. Their ads used to appeal to your masculinity, and then they took advantage of your sensitivity with aloe strips. They kept adding blades, thinking you wouldn't notice how clogged they get. And the more they changed, the more plastic and disposable they became. The honest truth is that those other razor brands are lying straight to your face, and our friends at Western Razor aren't going to take it anymore. That's why their safety razors are 100% metal, made in the USA, and made with integrity. The replacement blades are inexpensive too, so you get a great shave and you save money long term, because when you buy a Western Razor once, it will last you forever. Listeners of this show get a 10% discount on any order when they use promo code MATT10 at checkout. Don't let those other razor brands lie to your face. Go to westernrazor.com. Order yours today. Western Razor, the only razor you will ever need. Find everything you need from our friends at Western Razor, plus other great offers from the rest of our friendly listener-owned businesses. MattChristiansenMedia.com/deals. Deals by listeners, for listeners. And don't forget to check out many of the fine offerings from our friends at Hero Soap Company as well. Bar soap, liquid soap, shampoo, conditioner, and more, including my signature scents, Timberline and Old West. Great smelling, all natural products. Portion of the sales benefit military and first responder charities as well. 10% off all of it, herosoapcompany.com. Promo code MC-LISTENER. Promo code MC-LISTENER, 10% off at herosoapcompany.com. All right, quick announcement, Robert, with which you're probably familiar, but I want everybody to know that Bible study is back on Friday nights. Of course, Robert was the originator of the Bible study, but it continues on Friday nights with Rev Rogers. We're working our way through Ephesians. The study is open for participation by Zoom. There's discussion each session. You can also listen on demand through the podcast feed if you'd like. So if you're like a lot of people right now and you're searching for God in these crazy times, you can join us for some scripture study on Friday nights or anytime that it fits into your life through the podcast feeds. Find all the information on the Bible study page of my website, right there on the homepage, mattchristiansenmedia.com. And then the last announcement before we get into the news, Robert, I mentioned the show has a voicemail inbox, and it does. And I know Discord is not the most convenient way to call the show. Not everybody can call live, and Discord is its own difficulty to navigate. If you'd like to participate at your own convenience, you can now call the voicemail line for the show. That is 406-312-5731. If you call that, it just goes straight to a voicemail inbox, and then I can play them and we can respond to them on the show. And actually, you don't need to remember the phone number at all. You can just go to the contact page of my website. And if you're visiting from, or if you're on the site on a phone, or I guess a PC that can make a call, you can just click to call and leave a voicemail easily that way. And yes, I know this is a trolling opportunity, but I think that's going to be part of the appeal too. Maybe you might get on the soundboard if you leave a good enough voicemail. We'll see. But I look forward to voicemails being a regular part of the Wednesday stream going forward. Likewise with emails, try to keep these brief. Guideline is about a minute if you can. I'm not going to cut you off if you're a minute 10, but the point is we're trying to be quick and efficient with these. So aim for as quick and efficient as you can possibly be. All right, Robert. I assume you followed the Mormon church shooting over the weekend in Grand Blanc, Michigan.
It's horrific.
Remains something of a bizarre mystery in terms of why. We discussed it on Sunday, and of course it had happened earlier in the day on Sunday. This 40-year-old former Marine, his name is Thomas Sanford, he goes by Jake Sanford, attacked this Mormon church in Grand Blanc, rammed his truck into the building. The truck had a deer skull and antlers mounted on the front, 2 big American flags flowing from the truck bed. And he just starts shooting into the church, some kind of semi-automatic rifle. Then we didn't know how he started the fire on Sunday. It's now reported that he used gasoline or some kind of similar accelerant to set the building on fire. I've seen reports that said he had some kind of explosives. Maybe he had Molotovs, something like that. But he was able to start a fire in short order, obviously. In the end, 4 are dead, including the gunman, 8 more wounded. Investigators say they've completed a sweep of the charred building ruins, and they don't believe there are any more additional remains inside. Nobody's missing. Everybody's accounted for. But why did this guy do it? Have you seen any information on that, Robert?
I have seen some of the things floating around, the picture of the Trump shirt and all that, but it seems to me, and maybe you're about to inform me, that we don't know yet. I don't know. I might be outdated.
Well, you're right that I've seen claims about he was wearing, it's not a claim, there's a photo of him wearing a Trump shirt from like 2019. There's also the bit that we talked about on Sunday where there was a Trump Pence sign at his house that appears to be attached to a stop sign, so it was interpreted as like stop Trump Pence. People try to make it political, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But for now, I guess the explanation is just the obvious one. He really hated Mormons that much. Chris Johns is a candidate for city council. This is nearby Burton, Michigan, nearby to the church. But this is where the shooter lived. And this Chris Johns guy was recently out campaigning because he's running for city council. And he happened to knock on the shooter's door or otherwise visit the shooter a week before the shooting. And he is saying that when he talked to him, even in just like a quick campaign way, that Sanford, quote, went off on a tangent about how Mormons are the Antichrist. And this city council candidate, Chris Johns, says the shooter never mentioned Trump or Charlie Kirk or anything political. It's just that he hated Mormons so much. So here's Johns saying that during a CNN interview this week.
Make the statement like that Mormons are the Antichrist, which is a shocking statement. And again, this is somebody you're just meeting for the first time. There was anger. I mean, it was a long-standing anger that I'm speculating, but what he did took planning. It also took real motivation and real anger to ultimately do what he did.
He said that there was nothing in that conversation besides some elevated language, some pointed language towards the LDS community here. He said nothing rose to the level where he felt he needed to report that conversation.
Now, Robert, I can believe that someone has a hate for a particular faith sufficient to shoot up a house of worship like this. We've seen plenty of episodes of that. Saw it in Minneapolis a month ago. We've seen it before. What's odd to me about this case is that this shooter, Jake Sanford, doesn't seem like a loner type of guy or the typical shooter profile, in that he had a family. He had a wife. He had a child with a rare disease. There's stories about him traveling with his wife to Texas to get medical treatment for this kid. Kind of unclear what has happened with the family in recent years, but maybe I'm wrong. It just seems like whenever there's a I hate this faith shooting or attack, it's usually like a loner type of person without much to live for. Mm-hmm. I don't know. What do you make of it? It just seems outside the usual profile in that way. Or do you disagree?
No, I agree. I can't make sense of this. Sure, like let's say he doesn't like Mormons. Okay, whatever. Plenty of people don't like, Jews or Christians or Muslims or whatever. But to go and shoot up a church and I mean, do something this horrific, I don't know. I can't understand it. Like you said, unless he's like a loner who's maybe a little crazy or whatever. It seems to me there has to be more to this story. Like maybe he had some bad experiences in the past that we're not aware of. Not that would justify it. I want to be super clear. But like, I still feel like there's something missing. Well,
there was one, let me find the quote, because everything I've read said there's no known connection between him and the church, or him and really anybody who attends the church. But there was one, let me see if it's, okay, yeah. So this is the Gateway Pundit's interview with this guy, Chris Johns, who's the same guy we just saw in the CNN interview. And as part of this interview, it says Mr. Johns revealed that the shooter, who had several tattoos, also confided in him. So when the city council campaign guy went to the house of the shooter and they're talking about his political campaign, and the guy says, "I hate Mormons a lot," somehow the topic of his tattoos came up, and the shooter confided in the campaign guy, "They at the Mormon church wanted me to get my tattoos removed." Okay, we know this Mormon church is 8-9 miles away from the guy's house. Did the Mormons just see him on the street and say, take those off, you son of a bitch? Or I don't know. But who was he talking to in the church that wanted his tattoos removed? That implies a connection to the church to me.
It does. It does. And it seems to me, and again, I could be totally wrong. Maybe he was just this level of crazy, but that there had to be some, what people call church hurt. I hate that term, but like maybe he was getting involved with the Mormons at some point and there was a conflict. Like otherwise, I just can't make sense of this.
Rejected for I don't know what level of understanding you have of Mormon community or Mormon faith, but is that a thing in the Mormon community? You're not supposed to have tattoos. Have you ever heard of that?
I do not know their specific stance on tattoos. It would seem to me that they would be against it, but I don't want to speak to that because I really don't know for sure.
I know we have some Mormon listeners, so if you're out there and you might be more familiar with the doctrine, send me an email, because I found that clause to be, or just that statement to be interesting. Like the Mormons had told him to get rid of his tattoos. Well, okay, then there's some kind of connection. But all right, Robert, we are now in
Government Shutdown.
As of 12:01 a.m. this morning, October 1st, the government's financial clock expired, and since no deal has been reached, it is shutdown time. And there was an effort last night to do a temporary extension to keep the government operational while party leadership can negotiate some long-term spending plan. The House passed a bill to extend current spending 7 weeks, so just status quo for a couple months. That bill failed in the Senate, where, of course, 60 votes are necessary to break the filibuster, which I'm a little bit unclear. I need to look at the rules on this because I thought that budgetary matters they didn't need to clear the filibuster hurdle, but for some reason they do on this one. I don't know. Are you you got an understanding of that particular congressional rule, Robert?
I'm sorry to sound so ignorant again, but no, I do not know why in this case they do need to clear it.
Well, maybe if I guess you won't be parliamentarian anytime, but we'll figure it out. Anyway, so they need this. Go ahead.
So going to law school, like people kind of assume that you will be like an expert on, say, Congress or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like we know how to file lawsuits and like, you know what I mean? Like write legal memos or whatever, but in, kind of
that's what
rules of Congress we don't know.
Yeah, that's what I understand, because the Big Beautiful Bill was a spending extension. And remember, the reason we had to pass the Big Beautiful Bill was so that you could have these debates in the fall. Remember, that was the thinking at the time, because a lot of that was an extension of Biden era spending. And it was, well, we'll get the real budget deal in the fall come October. But the Big Beautiful Bill passed with a bare majority. It was not passed with 60 votes in the Senate. So I don't know. Maybe it's one of those like you can only use. I thought I remember maybe there's like you can use it once a year rule or something. I can't remember. Anyway, nobody understands, so I won't pretend to. In this case, they needed the 60 votes. And of course, they didn't get them. But 3 Democrats did break ranks. So you had all but one Republican in the Senate voting to do this temporary spending extension, that being Rand Paul. Rand Paul voted against it because he says he doesn't want to extend Biden-era spending levels.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
You had 3 Democrats break ranks, and that was Based Frankenstein, John Fetterman, Angus King, and Catherine Cortez Masto. But that still leaves you, at the end of the accounting here, 5 votes shy of the necessary 60. They came up with 55. So obviously they're short, but that 3 breaking from Schumer implies to me that Schumer's grip on this shutdown's a little bit weak, not extremely strong. You only need to lose like a handful more Democrats before this thing's over. And that's really the question going through this is who's going to blink first? I think it's pretty clearly going to be Democrats. They're losing the meme war, obviously. But what, you got any predictions on that, Robert? Who's going to blink first in this stalemate?
The Republicans always cave. I hope this time they don't, but they always cave. Even when they control everything, like, in the recent past, in the last, decade or whatever, there's been times when they control the presidency and both chambers of Congress, and they would still cave. Every time they would cave. And
it would be on brand. You're right.
Yeah. So I am fully expecting for like Monday to roll around and the Republicans to be like, actually, we are sorry. We will spend infinity money transing the kids and I don't know, sending it to Ukraine, whatever the Democrats are into.
How are the kids' gender clinics in Kyiv doing? They must be drastically underfunded. We've got to get this taken care of.
Indeed.
Anyway, so what is the dispute? You've probably heard the talking points. Democrats say that Republicans are trying to take away your health care. Republicans say that Democrats are trying to give your health care to illegals. I mean, both require explanation. The sticking point is that Democrats want an extension to health insurance premium subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, of course. And those, they're not just extensions, because the subsidies were expanded as part of Biden's American Rescue Plan. So like COVID era spending, we expanded these healthcare subsidies under the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. Now, those are going to expire. Those expanded subsidies are going to expire at the end of the year. And so the narrative of taking your health care away is that, well, if we don't continue, remember, COVID era spending was supposed to be temporary. If we don't continue the COVID era policy of expanding the premium subsidies, then you as a consumer are going to face significant premium increases. That's what they mean when they say Republicans are trying to take away your health care. But the qualifier on that, or the asterisk on that, is those don't expire till the end of the year. Now, as a practical matter, for if you want to continue these subsidies or continue them in their expanded state, you're going to have to do that before November 1st because people need to buy their health insurance policies for 2026 starting December 1st or somewhere around there. So if you want to do that as a matter of policy, there's a reasonably tight timeline, but there's nothing about October 1st that compels you to act now, like anybody's going to have their health care stolen from them today or anything like that. And the thing for Democrats is Republicans are actually, at least Republican leadership, John Thune in the Senate, is saying we're open to negotiating on that. If you want to talk expanded premium subsidies, we need to have some waste reduction. We need to have some spending cuts in other areas. So Republicans are signaling openness to negotiate, and Democrats are saying, no, you have to expand the Biden era, or you have to continue the Biden era subsidy expansion, or we're out. Is that your understanding of the situation, Robert? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. No. I mean, I haven't followed it any more closely than that. And I mean, if the subsidies go down, certainly many people won't be able to afford healthcare. I mean, that is not incorrect. But correcting me here if I'm wrong, or I guess you're probably about to touch on this point, this also affects coverage for illegal immigrants.
That is a little bit dicey, and you might be able to inform me on this too, because this is where we get into legal technicalities. So the counterpoint, the Republican point is, and of course the subject of the memes is Democrats are just putting on their sombreros, they're putting on their mustaches, and they want to make sure every Juan and Pedro who just showed up yesterday gets healthcare on your back. And from what I can tell, what they mean by that in the technical sense, and by they I mean the president and Republicans in Congress, is that they want to preserve protections against illegal aliens receiving healthcare benefits that were a part of Trump's big, beautiful bill. So strictly speaking, through the Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare exchanges, illegals can't go on there and buy health insurance. You go on there, you declare that you're a U.S. citizen. Not that it's impossible for anybody to defraud the system, like we saw with this. Robert, did you see the story of the superintendent in Des Moines, Iowa? I cannot believe this. But the guy who was just arrested by ICE.
Yep, I watched your video. It's like the perfect story. It's just perfect that this illegal immigrant is running the schools, getting paid $300,000 a year. Why not?
Man, if only we could all be so successful in our get-rich-quick schemes. But whenever people say, illegal, when you hear that, like, illegal immigrants can't get health insurance in that way, I mean, strictly speaking, yes. However, is it scammable? I've seen some do it. I don't know what the volume is, but it's scammable. And if it's a government program, it's scammable. As a matter of policy, they're not supposed to be able to do that. But the big beautiful bill contained a whole series of protections meant to strengthen against that sort of fraud. And some of it's not even fraud. Some of it is what you consider to be an illegal alien under the distortion of terms that was the Biden administration. And what I mean by that is, let's say that you didn't just hop across the border. You actually showed up under the Biden era and you claimed asylum in the way that it was kind of radically expanded in the Biden era. That person might still be here under technically legal terms, even though their claim of asylum was totally bogus, and could theoretically collect healthcare benefits in some form. The technicals here are a little bit complicated or beyond my understanding, but reading what the White House is saying about this, that's what they mean as far as I understand. So Democrats want to repeal these things. That is to say, those protections that roll back benefit eligibility for people who showed up under the last 4 years of totally open borders and might have a some sort of technical claim to being here legally, rolling that back. There's also states have, I don't really understand this loophole, and maybe you've heard of this, Robert, I don't know, but somehow states are gaming Medicaid to get federal matching funds to pay for healthcare for illegal aliens under their Medicaid programs. Have you ever heard of that? California supposedly figured this out. I don't know the technicals on it, but that's what the White House is saying.
I have not, I mean, I don't know the details of this, but I'm not surprised by this at all because, these funds, like Medicaid funds, get handled partially by the state and partially by the feds. So states will normally have their own programs. I'm familiar with like the Texas one and the Arkansas one, but they get these matching funds from the feds, and so that clearly here what California is doing is using their state program to cover illegals, but then they're still able to claim the matching funds from the Fed. So at the end of the day, let's end up covering this anyways.
And that's what the White House is calling the California loophole. They're looking to close that, or they did something to try to get that under control in the big, beautiful bill. So Republicans want this maintained. Democrats want these things repealed. So do Democrats want health care for illegals? I mean, I don't doubt that many of them do. As a strict matter of policy, it's kind of a few leaps to that, but it's not like untenable. It's not like a crazy situation to think that rolling back these protections against it might enable illegal aliens to get health benefits in ways that they should not or potentially have not been able to in the past. So that's as far as the truth in the illegal alien claim and the basis for the memes that we're about to see. That's all the legal mumbo jumbo behind the sombrero and mustache stuff, as far as I understand it. But as far as who's going to win this shutdown battle, insofar as you think the government coming back into regular business is a win, which is a highly debatable point, Democrats apparently think they can just pin this shutdown on Trump and gain political points. I assume they get Trump to blink and get Trump to do what they want. The problem with that supposed leverage, and let me know if you disagree, Robert, the problem with that, though, is that nobody really cares. Oh no, like a paid vacation for government workers. Oh no, some lawns in DC don't get mowed. They act like the government shutting down, of course, is going to cause everyone to die. We'll hear about the food banks are under great pressure. We'll hear about that in a moment. I just don't know that anybody buys this doomerism, especially when we just went through this for a month in 2019. So if we get an extended shutdown, and Democrats have warned about how everyone's going to die and it's going to be a major problem if we have, does that not work against them a little bit insofar as everybody can see like, oh, the government actually doesn't do that much. Oh, Democrats aren't really my savior. I don't have to rely on them. And who in the Trump or the Republican voter base, independents who are maybe switch between parties, who is supposedly brought over to the Democrats by this? It's toothless. It's silly. And as we'll get to with the polling in a minute, even their own voters don't like it. So whatever leverage the Democrats think they have here, I just don't see it. I think they're just I assume their goal is shut down the government, blame it on Trump, and somehow will inspire even more Trump hate than we've already squeezed out of this, orange or lemon or whatever metaphor you want to. There's no more Trump hate to squeeze. So I just don't get the angle here.
And somehow it always works. Like the Republicans always cave. This is what I hate about this. Like the Republicans should just say, you know what? Not only are we done negotiating with you, now we're going to come up with an even like more Republican budget, whatever the Republicans want. And they have to go, if you want to keep the government shut down, you have at it. You keep it shut down forever if you want to, and actually mean it. And if 2 months go by, do it. Because all it can do, like you said, is have the effect of making people realize, oh, when the government shuts down, like life goes on. Like it's no big deal. But the Republicans act like they really have to get this, open again. And I don't know. I feel like for some reason, the Republican politicians buy the argument, although I fully agree with you that in reality, no one cares.
They might be working on some measures that you're talking about, which is to say, okay, if Congress doesn't act, that leaves it to the executive to manage the government as the executive sees fit. And we're at least getting talk of movement to that effect. We talk about leverage here, as in like who actually has power to institute some things they want and inflict pain on the other side. I mean, it's all Trump here. That's the way this is going to work out. Trump is currently threatening the jobs of federal workers. Earlier today, the Office of Management and Budget Director Russ Vogt, I believe is it? I think that's how you say his name, right? VOGT. I can't remember. Sure. Russ Vogt. He's saying the administration will start firing federal workers in the next 1 or 2 days, so imminently. And as far as I understand, this is because under government shutdown, the money for all these various programs and projects in all these departments, well, that's dried up. That's why the government's not operating. And so without Congress to direct the use of money or to stop the executive from misusing money or doing whatever against Congress's intent, it really leaves it up to the executive to determine how these agencies are going to be managed. And so if Congress wants to stop the White House and want to stop Russ Vogt and save these federal jobs, they're going to have to get their act together, and they're going to have to pass a bill that authorizes spending that maintains these jobs, these programs, all these different departments in all these different agencies. So I think the pressure here is very, very simple. Democrat voters, who include, of course, a lot of federal employees, government workers, they'll probably apply the pressure to resolve this. Republican voters and maybe Republican-leaning independents, I don't think they care at all. I think a lot of them even like the shutdown. And I'm kind of in that club where like, okay, oh no, not that. I can't imagine life without the federal government, even though you get pretty much all the federal government continuing anyway. It's not like you go to the airport and TSA leaves you alone or something like that. I fully take your point on nobody being masterful cowards like the Republicans traditionally are. I just don't see what ammunition Democrats have here. I see them caving pretty quickly. Probably get little to nothing, but you'll probably I'm probably underselling the cowardice of the Republican Party.
So two quick comments on this. One, I love this like hostage situation. Like the longer you take, the more hostages we execute. Like this, it's like the federal workers being fired, right? It's like, okay, every day you keep the government shut down, 1,000 workers get.
Trump's a showman. Make a reality show where we all get to vote on which federal employee gets fired. That would be great.
I love that. But I do want to say, I want people to remember whenever Obama was president and the Republicans, quote unquote, shut down the government, like they were the ones not supporting the budget bill. And I don't remember specific dates, but Obama shut down the national parks.
That's right.
On what I believe was a long weekend. He didn't have to. In fact, during government shutdowns, we don't shut down national parks. That's not.
I can still go to Yellowstone tomorrow if I want to.
And Obama did that just to annoy people so they would put pressure on the Republicans. Okay. So
Yeah.
I just want to say that. So if anybody's like, well, I can't believe Trump now is going to like pick and choose what is essential. Well, Obama did it, and I'm done with this whole argument of like, well, if we do it, what are they going to do in the future? They already did it. Like, let's put the pressure back on the Democrats here.
So, as you're talking about, like, what's going to happen in the meantime, and like the shutdowns of the past, pretty much nothing. If you go to the post office, it's still running. If you're in the military, you're still in uniform, you're still going to get paid. If you are a Medicare beneficiary or Medicaid, government is paying for your health care. You can still go get your health care. If you're a Social Security beneficiary, if you're collecting that for your retirement, you're still going to get your Social Security check. So if they can't do the national park pressure, one of the things I've seen in the media coverage is the tried and true method of sympathy for federal employees. Won't somebody please think of the federal government employees, of course, with their inflated wages and their gigantic benefits packages. And I'm not calling out any particular federal worker. I know there are federal workers who listen to this show, and I know that you have a job just like anybody else does, and you're trying to do it honestly, just like the next guy is. But that's kind of the point. Is every other guy who's just doing his job has to live in this reality all the time. That is to say, you might get laid off tomorrow for reasons that are fair, unfair, surprising, not surprising. Hey, I had the federal government delete my job entirely on a moment's notice last year. It happened to me. So I'm not hoping for misfortune or bad things for federal workers, but this is just the reality that everybody else lives with every day. And the reality, too, is nobody enjoys, or very few enjoy, job security like the federal workforce does. Gigantic unions protecting them, generally big pay, generally massive benefits. Almost nobody else gets that. And if you're in that situation, it doesn't matter what job you have, whether you're working at McDonald's or whether you're working for a gigantic federal agency, you as a responsible person have an obligation to save for difficult times. The rest of us have to. I know it's easier said than done in inflationary times and with certain economic pressures, but you have to, as a responsible person, live within your means and assume that your job might go away at some point and you might have to navigate to the next one. And that's why I can't have sympathy for this idea that they put out there of like government workers maybe missing a paycheck. And it's not, when I say missing, like you're going to get paid later. You might just have a delay in your check. Even if it lasts, like we're talking about a week, a month, probably nothing more than that. But if that radically changes your life, that really is on you to plan better, because the rest of us have to do that in every single job that we work. So I get a kick out of NBC's reporting this morning. Very soon, you know what might end this shutdown, Robert? We might see federal workers desperately seeking food at the food banks again.
Longest shutdown ever was 34 days. So be thinking somewhere in the range of between a few days from now, maybe a month. Who knows? It could be longer. What could move the needle? Here's a couple of metrics to watch. First, paycheck strain, right? Bank accounts. When federal workers start to miss paydays, could we see some of those workers or their families showing up at food bank lines, for example, like we saw back in 2019?
Okay, so if you're a federal worker who has to go to the food bank because of one missed pay period,
You're a very, very silly person.
Live within your means, plan for a rainy day. The rest of us do. We don't get media playing sad violins for us. By the way, you're going to get paid later, even if there is a break in your pay. So enjoy your vacation, I guess. You're going to be fine. The rest of us should all be so lucky as to have a little bit of time off, after which we get paid as though we worked anyhow. But Robert, am I being too mean? Or what are your thoughts on the desperate federal workers?
No, I feel very bad for anyone missing a paycheck. That's about the hardest time in anyone's life. Except for like family tragedy, somebody's death or something like that. It is really hard. However, I agree with what you're saying. they're not entitled to our money. That, to me, that's the thing. It's like, I always look at this like, we need to give these workers our money that's been taken from our paychecks right now. Right now. We cannot stop. They're freaking entitled to it. And it's like, no, they're not. You're not entitled to my money. I'm sorry. Although, again, I do sympathize with them. But this idea that people go from like a missed paycheck to a food bank, like, do these people not have families? Like, what is this scenario? You have like a government worker with $0 in the bank, with no one to reach out to. Like, if that's the state of our federal workers, we have bigger issues. Like, maybe we should discuss that first.
Well, the federal government is a giant jobs program. I should be careful. I know many of you do the job honestly, and I know many of you who work for the federal workforce actually agree with a lot of what we're saying here. So I shouldn't paint with too broad of a brush. However, I've also seen news reports to this effect trying to make all these supposedly endangered federal workers seem as sympathetic as possible. And so they do interviews where people describe situations like you're talking about, where supposedly you're going to be in a desperate, near homeless situation in a matter of days because of this uncertainty or something. All I will say is, if they were trying to disprove stereotypes, the stereotypes were hardened by this cover. That is what I'm saying is, it looks like the federal government in a lot of ways is a giant jobs program for people who might not otherwise succeed in other jobs. I'll just leave it at that.
They're just hiring like would-be hobos. It's like, if we could hire them, they'd be hobos tomorrow.
Yeah, kind of.
Oh, wow. I don't know that should be our standard.
Yeah, it seems like something like that is going on. But I mentioned the polling, and the polling generally does not. Oh, got to go back here. The polling doesn't really favor the Democrats on this one. A New York Times Siena poll released yesterday shows 65% of registered voters agree with the statement, Democrats should not shut down the government even if their demands are not met. And that includes almost half, 43% of registered Democrats agreeing with the statement. That's Democrats saying Democrats shouldn't be doing what they're doing. 59% of independents oppose the shutdown under any circumstances. The fact that there was a vote last night, I think there might have been two of them. I think there might have been one today, but there was one vote or multiple votes to just continue spending at status quo, and Democrats refused. That's really all you need to know about the shutdown and who's to blame. You had an opportunity just to not shut down and continue negotiation. Democrats refused that. Or, maybe their polling is a little unkind to them. Maybe it's based Democrats. Thank you for shutting down this clown show in DC. Please keep it up. But that's all I have to say on like the technicals of the shutdown. Of course, it's almost less about the technicals and more about the racist memery that has resulted. But before I move into that, Robert, do you have any other thoughts on the technicals of the shutdown?
No, I guess let me just say again, I really do feel bad for anyone who is not getting their paycheck. That is really, really rough. I'm not making light of that. I'm really not. But like, I don't know. I don't want to repeat myself. I just don't feel like anyone is entitled to get our tax money. And if the feds, like if federal workers don't want to go through this again, then they need to start thinking, hey, maybe the government should be more efficient so that we're not having all of these budgetary issues, but instead all of these agencies, what they do is just grow and grow and grow and grow. And so the budget now is so massive that they get in the situation every, year, every couple of years, whatever. And so I guess that's also why I may have sounded a bit harsh, is that attitude. Is the government just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then they go, hey, why don't we have enough money to pay everyone? Well, because you're spending more than you even make, quote unquote, emphasis on those air quotes. Because they don't make
you're the only unaccountable organization, or one of an elite club at least.
Yeah, but, in any other company, like I think of where I work, all employees are very mindful because they know that if the company doesn't perform well, they're not going to get bonuses at the end of the year. But that doesn't exist in the federal government. You can make your agency 10 times as big, and it is just no skin off your back. And that can't go on.
Well, The government shutdown controversy itself is now possibly secondary to the Trump racist meme controversy that has resulted. And as always, Democrats just can't resist the bait and beclown themselves. So on Monday night, Trump posted a video with Chuck Schumer talking in what is obviously AI-generated audio of his voice about how everybody hates Democrats, while Hakeem Jeffries, the House Democrat leader, stands by wearing a sombrero and a mustache because, of course, Democrats' priority is illegals.
Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, you know, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
Ha, that's so funny. Ha, ha, ha.
That's pretty funny. I would grade that meme fairly high, Robert. But the reaction makes it so much better. And it's not just the reaction from Democrats, which of course we'll get to. I love news protecting me from misinformation like that. Oh, thank you for protecting me from such danger. I had no idea that was not an authentic video. On Tuesday morning's coverage yesterday, the reporter at NBC clarifies for all of us, just so you know, that was AI generated and misleading.
Overnight, Trump posting a misleading AI-generated video mocking the Democratic leaders on healthcare and immigration. The Democrats calling it a tantrum and bigotry.
So you mean to tell me, Robert, that Hakeem Jeffries didn't actually wear a sombrero and grow a mustache for this press conference?
I was fooled. I was entirely fooled.
I was actually duped by the dancing at the Epstein binder reveal. That was one AI generation that did trick me. So I don't have a perfect record on this. But I would say, obviously, the content of what Schumer is saying, if you heard it without the Mexican themes, you would know it's fake because he would never say that about his own party.
Of course, yeah.
But the voice is getting better. And by that, I mean like the cadence and the voice sounds nearly authentic.
Oh, it
so
does.
if he was saying something more realistic, it might be convincingly Chuck Schumer.
Oh yeah, if he was saying something like, "We need to chop off more wieners," I'd be like, "Yeah, that was Chuck Schumer."
Okay, so on Monday night, Hakeem Jeffries appears on Lawrence O'Donnell's MSNBC show.
Stop the hammering!
And Hakeem Jeffries warns Trump, "Well, your bigotry will get you nowhere."
Could you give us your reaction to that Trump posted video tonight?
It's a disgusting video, and we're going to continue to make clear bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican assault.
I mean, crying about memes will probably get you nowhere. Crying about memes is going to get you more memes. So I never say this because it's such a ridiculous thing that they always say. By that, I mean like progressive left ideologues. But it's 2025 and we're still complaining about bigotry and racism. What is this, a decade ago? And you're responding to Trump going down the escalator? Just like, guys, you have with all the power and resources of the Democrat Party, you need to get your biggest, brightest brains together and come up with a meme response squad that can do things. Oh, it's racist. It's bigoted. Sorry, people. As JD Vance was saying earlier today, is there one person of Hispanic descent? You're a Chilean guy, Robert. That's close enough to Mexican, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if do they have deep south of Mexico? Yeah. Do they have sombreros in Chile?
We do not. Now we do have kind of our own hat that is equally big, just a little less colorful. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes, we do.
Is there a person on the planet of Hispanic descent who is offended by a hilarious video of Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero with mariachi music? The answer is no.
0 people. None at all. Because also, I don't know if people know this, but like Mexicans don't wear those hats all the time. Even they find them like a little unusual. You know, so yeah, no, nobody's offended. And yeah, the bigotry against whom? Like, I've never understood why just like using an element of another culture just on its own is bigotry. Like, if I put on a sombrero right now, I'm not hating on anyone. Like, I'm just wearing a sombrero.
Yeah. So Hakeem Jeffries is just walking right into the trap, not only of responding with pearl clutching rather than humor of his own, but with just the tired response of, oh, it's racist, it's bigoted. So what does Trump do? As I said, when you complain about the memes, you're just going to get more memes. He uses that video clip to make a second video, or, you know, whoever the meme creators are behind this, they deserve credit because it's not Trump himself making this, but he's sharing them. So a second meme video comes out. This time it's Hakeem with a traditional Mexican musical accompaniment.
It's a disgusting video, and we're going to continue to make clear bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican assault.
Got him! Got him!
And
Did Trump actually post that?
Yeah, Trump posted that.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
He posted both of them.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's why they're all uptight. And it was 2 days of the exact same thing. You had this happen on Monday and Tuesday morning's news broadcast on NBC. Oh, just so you know, that's an inauthentic, manipulated, AI-generated deepfake. They did the same thing this morning. Thank you for protecting me from this misinformation.
The president posting photos of negotiations with Democratic leaders Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries in the Oval Office. And then another AI manipulated video mocking Jeffries.
He's an unserious individual.
Democratic leaders calling Trump, quote, erratic and unhinged, and saying that instead of negotiating, he is, quote, obsessively posting crazed deepfake videos.
You mean there weren't actually 4 Trump clones playing in a mariachi band behind him? Thank you, Democrats and NBC News. But that's the thing, like, just point of fact, as I said at the top of the show about deepfakes, deepfakes are intended to make you think a person really did something or really said something. No, that was not presented with the intent of getting anybody to think that Chuck Schumer actually said that, or Hakeem Jeffries was actually standing in front of a mariachi band or wearing a sombrero. The whole point is humor, and they just refuse to acknowledge the humor.
Yeah, they do the same with satire. When satire hits too close to home, they write the same articles and they're like, misleading article or whatever. And it's like, no, it was satire. Everyone knows the Babylon Bee is not a real news outlet or whatever. Yeah, it's such a dumb attack, but it's not going to work because everyone can see the memes and go, that's pretty funny. I mean, like, these memes would be like a solid 6 out in the wild, but if they're like being government memes, like straight 10s. For government work.
Well, I think he has contracted it out, in fairness. I don't think it came from a government office, but I assume the meme office, if there is one, is essential during the shutdown and will continue to operate.
Of course.
But Hakeem Jeffries just can't stop. Like, I'm going to respond to memes with tough talk. Okay, he talks yesterday. He gets with his congressional Democrat yes queen friends and says that if Trump wants to insult him, well, he better have the courage to say it to Hakeem's face.
Mr. President, the next time you have something to say about me, don't cop out through a racist and fake AI video. When I'm back in the Oval Office, say it to my face. Say it to my face.
Look at this fan.
It's like, say what? I like your sombrero and your mustache. What is he supposed to say? I don't even. What are the fighting words that Trump is supposed to utter?
I find like kind of the crowd's response there, like being like, yeah, say it or whatever it is. Like, I find that so cringy. That's hard to watch. Why do they revert to this like this sort of like preacher persona with like these ladies just like effectively saying amen in the background? Like,
yeah.
Come on.
We got to get Maxine Waters up there to go, mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's effectively what happened.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, Trump did this to their face too. Oh, you better do it to my face. He might not have said, like, here's a sombrero and a mustache to wear to his face, but Trump did troll them to their faces at the Oval Office when they were discussing a potential deal before the shutdown actually started. Trump offered them Trump 2028 hats in the Oval Office. And then showed them, apparently on the wall where they have presidential portraits, Trump has replaced Biden's portrait with an auto pen portrait. He asked Schumer and Jeffries if they liked that display. No word in this report that I saw on whether they did in fact like the display or not. But the strategy, Democrats they're stuck in 2015. They think crying racism in the face of humor is going to be a political winner. Refer them back to the results of 2016, 2024, probably 2020. God knows what happens there. But it's the same loser response that they refuse to ditch. Get somebody in that party office with a sense of humor. My God, like, I don't agree with their policy ideas, but you can, it's like you said, these are 6 memes, okay? They're pretty good, but they're not unbeatable. These are not like world-class If you have someone competent to do your messaging who understands humor and fun, you could, I don't know, beat them at their own game is tough because it's hard to make good memes when you're disconnected from the truth. That's why left-wing memes generally don't land, and they're walls of text that try to explain things in clearly untrue terms as though they are true and they don't work. I'm just saying, like, I definitely take your point that these are the memes that they're tasked with beating are not unbeatable. They just refuse to try to engage in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that shows the underlying problem. Like you said, if they can't meme about it, it's because they don't have a message that actually connects with people in any way. And I mean, that's why they're in the worst shape they've been perhaps ever. The Democrats, I mean. By the way, I had seen this reported, the whole autopen picture. I thought it was fake. You know, I've said this before, like I don't have Twitter or whatever. And so like I just catch little snippets of things here and there. When I heard this, I was like, lol, obviously fake. Didn't happen.
It's a great move.
I cannot believe this. Wow. Incredible.
By the way, I skipped. Well, I didn't skip one. I forgot one. Even that Yes Queen speech that Hakeem Jeffries did. I don't know if Trump shared this one, but he got sombreroed for that too.
I am not even Mexican. I don't know why President Trump keeps saying that shit. He needs to say it to my face, Holmes. And while we're at it, I'm getting really tired of all that dollar store Obama shit. It's getting old, homie. My name is not Dollar Store Obama. Okay, pendejo? Órale! Arriba! Arriba!
So every speech you give will be sombrero memed until the shutdown ends, and probably not even then. That one is by, I don't know who made the other ones, but that one's by the appropriately named Donaldo Trumpo on X. So good work to him. There's also Congresswoman Madeline Dean from Pennsylvania. She's taking the fight directly to Speaker Johnson himself, demanding that he condemn the vile racism coming from the White House. According to her own description that she offered on MSNBC, Johnson refused to do the condemnation that she's demanding, and so she went straight to MSNBC to cry about it some more with Nicole Wallace.
What he thought of the tweet that the president put forward with our leader in a sombrero, nodding with a mustache, and Schumer saying things, of course, that he never said. The speaker said that was not his style. I said, did you call it out? You should call it out for the racist, bigoted thing that it was. And he questioned whether or not it was racist.
Mike Johnson doesn't know if a picture of Leader Hakeem Jeffries donning a sombrero and a mustache is or is not racist?
I said that very thing. I said an African-American leader of the House donning a sombrero and mustache. You don't see the bigotry in that? You don't see the racism in that? That's a problem, Nicole.
The American people are tired of women.
Rules are rules. So she got memed. She even got the maracas to go with the sombrero. But even if Mike Johnson does what she demands, he condemns the racism coming from the White House. So what? The government is still shut down. The same political stalemate remains. Does she think that her constituents care if Mike Johnson says that meme was racist or not? Maybe some, but I just don't. I'm baffled by the political strategy from Democrats here. It is doubling down on electoral failures, and they can't seem to learn their lesson. So, okay, go rage on MSNBC about how racist it is.
On the more important point, you know, they haven't caught on to the fact that their words of power no longer work. Like,
yeah.
You know, there was a time when you could walk in a room and accuse someone of being racist and it would destroy them. Like, it would destroy them. That word was magical. It no longer has any power. It's completely spent. So, like, you need a new magical spell. That one doesn't work. But I can't comprehend their standard. I really can't. I'm not playing dumb. So, like, if I put on a cowboy hat, am I a bigot?
Well, I don't. Weren't there South American cowboys? Isn't that a thing?
Yeah, but like,
is that a uniquely American, as in North American concept?
Well, the hat sort of is like, I mean, in Chile, the cowboys would wear this other kind of hat that looks more like a sombrero. So certainly if I put a regular cowboy hat, I would be like stepping out of my culture. Like, is this lady going to be like, bigot?
Well, no, of course, your point on power is exactly right. It's just power exercised against conservative white people. It has no actual meaning. It's just a weapon to try to get them. Is it caballeros? Is that the term? What's cowboy in Spanish?
Well, so in Chile, there would be huasos.
So it's a huaso hat. I just want to make sure I call it the correct thing.
And the hat is called a chupalla. You'll have to Google it. I'll send it to you later.
Okay. Just making sure I'm culturally sensitive here. Now, as ridiculous as Hakeem Jeffries has been, at least we don't have the House leadership of Nancy Pelosi to deal with. Now, Nancy got vulgar with reporters. She says she's describing what Trump said to Democrat leadership or her or other people. I'm not clear on the context of the quote. Now, is this a real quote, or is this just the wine talking, or maybe it's one of Paul's mystery cocktails?
It's important to note that they do not believe in governance, so a shutdown of government is a victory for them. They love that. Government is shut down. And when they've shut it down in the past, and when we've come back in, many of their leaders have not voted to come back in. What we're talking about is meeting the healthcare needs of the American people, little babies, moms with breast cancer, dads with a stroke, and all of that. The president has said, I hear what they're saying. It's all unserious and ridiculous. In fact, I've listened to their shit, and I tell them to go f themselves. So that's I can't believe I use that word. My kids will be shocked. My grandchildren will be further shocked. I'm just quoting the President of the United States.
I forgot that's also what Paul Pelosi said that crazy night.
Stop the hammering!
Do you believe Trump actually said that? I don't care about your shit. Go fuck yourself. That's what Nancy is accusing Trump of saying.
I bet those are his exact words. I would put money on that. Like, and good for him.
I just love this this pearl clutching too. It's not the racism pearl clutching. Now I guess it's language. Like, oh, I know that my children and grandchildren would be so shocked to hear me, devout Catholic Nancy Pelosi, say such vulgarity. As I support the systematic murder of babies and want government funding for such, like, as though her uttering a swear word is anything close to the worst thing she's done in her time in government. Anyway, I just get a kick out of that. Like, oh no, not a word, man. Yeah. This is so. My opinion of you has been lowered so much now. Anyway.
Yeah, she has supported the abortion of like infinity babies, but she's like, oh no, I said the F word, and it's like, lady,
yeah,
doesn't make the ranking. But I will say this. I mean, I just want to be clear. I do want our politicians to be dignified. I really do. And I would hope that they conduct themselves in honorable ways. That is good for the country. However, if these people just lie, like they outright lie. And so, and to me, that's more dishonorable than like saying a bad word or whatever. It's like, how about you guys negotiating good faith, truly in good faith? And then you tell me that Trump is not, like being professional, if you will.
Yeah.
then sure, okay, like I'm open to that. But come on, everybody has to change.
Well, that's the story of the Trump presidency. Would you rather have the mask of decorum, professionalism, respect that the Democrats supposedly have, but to your point, do terrible things, engage in horrible tactics? It's the mask of politeness or decorum that they wear is like a sheet of saran wrap. It's very transparent. You know, Trump, for all his language faults or lack of respect faults, is a completely authentic person. That explains his rise. And so, yeah, what would we rather have? Like Nancy Pelosi speaking properly or Donald Trump saying, go fuck yourself? Which would you rather have, even if you are a good person who would prefer language of a more elevated style? It's going to be Trump saying GFY every single time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, well, I've said enough on that. But yeah, so I don't care if that's how Trump treated them. If they don't negotiate in good faith, then I guess that's where we're at.
Well, we'll find out. I bet this will be resolved by the next time I stream on Sunday, but we'll see. I guess the House isn't supposed to get back together until next week, but I don't. Oops, sorry, wrong one. I don't know how that. I don't know how that works because they're saying the House is not in session, but the House also passed this bill that would have extended spending, so somehow they're able to still do that. It's kind of like the 60 vote rule. I don't really get it. Whatever. I think this will be resolved. I would guess. In days rather than weeks, if I was going to make a prediction on it, but I'm usually wrong in my predictions. So government shutdown until the new year, and that's just fine with me. Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's get into some calls. You ready for those? Make Absolutely. Sure we're unmuted in Discord, and we'll talk to Turles first. Turles, are you there?
Hello. How are you, gentlemen?
We are well. What's on your mind?
Well. So, especially since Robert is here, I've got another book for you.
Sure.
If you don't mind. So there's a certain genre of books that you may be or may not be familiar with, which is the gospel according to something, right? Or someone. And so are you familiar with that, Robert?
Well, I always just understood that to mean the titles of the gospels, like the gospel according to John, the gospel according to Matthew. True. Are you talking about something else?
Yeah, that's true. That is what those are called formally. But yeah, I'm talking about something in modern nonfiction. So for an example would be the Gospel According to Peanuts is one that I enjoyed, and it looks at it looks at the at Christian doctrines sort of through the messages of something like the Peanuts comic strip by Charles.
Okay, so you're saying the Charles Schulz like Snoopy thing. You're saying some sort of piece of pop culture explaining the gospel. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, in a sense, that this form of pop cultural material kind of interprets the gospel through a modern lens, which is certainly true of both Peanuts and some other comics. BC would be another one. The one that I wanted to highlight in particular was actually the Gospel According to Tolkien. So and of course, big time Tolkien fans already know that Mr. Tolkien was, of course, a devout Catholic, and he, of course, has a famous quote where he says in a letter how. What he specifically said was, "The Lord of the Rings is, of course, a fundamentally religious and Catholic work, unconsciously so at first, but consciously in the revision, which is," and he says, well, I'll cut that short, but the point is, there is a book by Ralph C. Wood called The Gospel According to Tolkien, and it's really good. It is academic, but it's also very accessible. You can listen to the audiobook in just under 6 hours or something.
Really quick, would this be suitable for someone who is new to the gospel, or would this be something for someone who has maybe read one or all of them?
Actually, that's really why I wanted to let you know about this, because it is absolutely appropriate for somebody new, because it has a very tangible, realistic approach. And by realistic, I mean experiential. You know, how you encounter the world is sort of Tolkien's encounter with the gospel, right? And so you'll see things in there like how he finds God basically in you know, in a good pipe of tobacco, or you know, in the woods that he enjoyed taking walks through, and that sort of thing. And that might not sound like much, but it's actually told in a very compelling way.
Have you heard of this, Robert?
Not of this particular book, but I went ahead and bought it while he was talking. I went ahead, your naughty book. I'm like, let's do this. When somebody recommends a book to me, I'm like, it must be good. Let's do this. Huh?
You probably have read more pages than any person I know in my life, in a ton of different contexts. You know, scripturally, legally. I'm sure your page count is higher than anybody I know.
I don't know. I don't know about that, but yeah, when somebody recommends, I just find books to be very personal. You know, when somebody recommends one, is they're really showing me like a part of themselves, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take that seriously and read it. So I bet it's good. I bet the book is phenomenal.
Well, there you go, Turles. You convinced him.
I've had so many book recommendations now, and this is the first confirmation I've had that somebody actually took it seriously. So I'm very gratified.
Hope you get a commission on that sale, and thanks for calling in.
Sure thing.
Okay.
Matt, before we jump to your next call,
yeah,
I do want to say that, you know, I bought that wood product from one of
the Switch case.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal.
Good.
The quality, I mean, it is like perfect. Quality is incredible. So I did want to review that. What is the company called? I forgot.
Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing. And that's Blake who runs the business and makes all the stuff. And everything I've received from them is top quality for sure.
It really is phenomenal. So I did want to say that.
Glad it worked out. Okay, let's talk to Architect. Architect, are you there? Architect?
Yeah, that's me.
There you go.
Josh, either one.
Yeah, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I meant to call in a good little while ago when I saw that you had become a Christian. I just wanted to let you know that I've been praying for you for a good little while, and I was very glad to hear that.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And God bless you. I know for longtime listeners of this show who are of the faith, there was maybe at times lack of patience. No, most people were really cool about it, but I know there were times where people were like, shit or get off the pot, dude. And I appreciate those of you who wanted me to come around, but allowed me the space to find my reason for it, because that was very important to me. Was to know why. Like, if I'm going to embrace a title, I need to know why. And today I have the why, and I can tell you the why. But I appreciate. I don't know if that's the reason for your call, or if that was just a note. But go ahead with whatever else you have.
Well, that's the majority of it. But also, I'm sure you're familiar with the parable Jesus told about the 11th hour.
That is beyond my scriptural expertise. Although you might ring a bell if you describe it.
Well,
Robert's like, I taught you all about that. What the hell?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Jesus says that a man goes out and hires laborers to work the field in the morning, and he agrees on their wages, or for the day. And then he goes out later in the day, he hires more, and then he goes out at the 11th hour, which means there's only an hour left in the day to work. And he pays everybody the same wage. And the people at the beginning of the day were saying, like, how come he gets paid what we do? We've been out here all day. And he says, is this not the wage that you agreed upon? So, for anybody who's kind of giving you trouble for, taking a while to come around or anything, it's a blessing whenever it happens. As long as you take care of things, before you pass, then, hallelujah.
And I think it's part of faith to believe that people will. Of course, there are people in my life that I would like to come around to faith too. But I'm not necessarily the guy that gets forceful with my urging or anything like that. I just, for people who are interested, I have faith that they will get there in the same way that I did. And so I appreciate your patience with that.
Yeah. Well, also, it's not like you owed it to me or anything. So,
but I appreciate your kind words, and I appreciate everybody in this community who's been a part of bringing me to it, which includes those who have prayed and those who have helped me along this path. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Also, just out of curiosity, I don't know if this is a sore subject. Did you and Blonde ever make up or anything?
Sore subject for sure.
Okay.
No, and there won't be reconciliation on that front. All I will say is that lines were crossed that can't be crossed, and that's okay. I wish her the best. I don't involve myself with that in any way at this point. But for me, even entertaining a discussion is a matter of protecting myself. And I don't believe that I can open that door and protect myself and my family. So that door is closed for me. But I do take audience wisdom on forgiveness, and I don't want to be motivated by any kind of negativity or hostility or anything like that. So I wish her the best. I hope she's successful in whatever she wants to do, but it's not going to include me, and I'm not going to allow that to control any aspect of my day-to-day life.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't want to bother you about it. It's just I've been watching your posted videos for pretty much ever since I started watching like 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Or somewhere along that line. But I hadn't watched the call-in show in a good little while, and it was probably back when Blonde was still on. So, I was catching up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming back, and I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate your kind words and your prayers. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for taking the call.
Have a great night.
All right, you too.
Any thoughts on any of that, Robert?
I'll just say that parable he mentioned is just really wonderful. This idea of no matter when you come on board, we all get paid the same. In a sense, there's just one reward. And so in that sense, there's no favoritism. There's no reason for pride. I just read it somewhat recently, and it is really wonderful. So people should go read it if they're not familiar with it.
All right. We'll take a call from Skulldugger to close out live calls tonight. Skulldugger, what do you got for us?
First of all, I'd like to say congratulations and God bless on the third son.
Well, thank you kindly. I appreciate that.
I myself am a third-born son, so so it's always nice to see more of us enter into the world. So,
do you have any advice for parenting a third-born son? I mean, throw your parents under the bus. What they do wrong?
Well, you actually, yours are probably close because you knocked them out in pretty quick succession, and so
that's
so
one way to put it. Yeah.
So were me and my brothers. So it gets crazy. I mean, we put, especially my mom, because she was a stay-at-home mom for most of our childhood. We put her through absolute hell, most likely. I mean, she's gracious enough to, not hold it against us. It's not like she reminds us of how terrible we were at every chance she gets. But I'm sure we actually absolutely took her to her limits.
Yeah. There was some of that going on earlier today without getting too deep into it, but it's like I was setting up to doing some show prep around like a couple hours before live, and this was the first time I've heard like the symphony of 3 kids screaming simultaneously. I was like, oh man.
Oh yeah.
And I know my wife's doing everything she can to manage it. So, it is what it is. We're just going to deal with that. But today was like the first full blast of all of them together that I've experienced. So we'll see how the patience and the discipline works out.
Well, and we grew up. So I grew up in the 80s. So it was a rough and rugged time back then. I mean, you basically just kicked your kids out of the house for most of the day and wished them good luck. Be home before the street lights come on. We had like a reverse curfew. I don't want to see you in this house before 4 o'clock.
I think maybe we're on our way to that. But when they're super young, you can't do that. If all our boys were like around 10 or early teens, you could definitely do that. At least if you live in a safe neighborhood. But yeah, not when they're 4 and 2.
They'll get to an age of, I mean, they're going to be absolutely just clobbering each other nonstop at some point. And that's the way me and my brothers. I mean, we were at the urgent care center like every other weekend with something. Somebody had some sort of injury or another. So.
Yeah. That we'll see how that goes too. We'll see if like the Democrats are warning about my insurance bill is going to be through the roof. There's nothing I can do. Yeah.
So I wanted to clean up one thing I had said weeks ago regarding Pam Bondi. So it had come out, when she fumbled the Epstein release and all that stuff, and everybody was like, "You have to fire her now." And I was arguing, like, now, from a sort of political strategic standpoint, is not a great time to be firing your AG and trying to get another one in while also doing other political maneuverings.
You are fake news. Very fake news.
So it's time to fire Pam. Is that what you're saying?
It's time to fire Pam.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Especially after her comments about the DOJ will target hate speech and that kind of stuff. It's just like you cannot say that and occupy that chair. I'm sorry. You got to go.
I didn't even get to talk about that because that I would have talked about at the Wednesday show that was 2 weeks ago, but I took that off because my wife was just starting to go into labor. So yeah, that whole thing I didn't get to comment on at all, but that was it's bad politically. It's legally bunk too. You're the country's, at least the federal government's top lawyer or prosecutor. You're talking about like hate speech nonsense that has no basis in the First Amendment case law. What are you even talking about? It was professionally disqualifying.
And then you have, you have senators talking about how ridiculous it is to believe that rights come from anywhere other than the state. And it's just like, what?
Yeah.
Where are we going with this? This is getting into some really dangerous, fundamentally opposed to what we are about territory, and not good. Yeah, that's why as soon as I heard her say that, I was like, all right, she just has to go. You have to fire her today.
You've Pam simped enough, and now you're off the Pam train. All right.
To be clear, I was never simping. I was like, she's terrible.
Yeah.
But
it was a strategic.
There are other political sort of things to take into account here. But I mean, now with the shutdown anyway, which whether the Republicans win or lose the shutdown, it's still going to be an issue likely for midterms. So I mean, at this point, trying to hold on to Pam Bondi because of some midterm value, I don't think she holds any midterm values anymore. Get rid of the bitch.
No, yeah, I don't really think there's a political cost to getting rid of her. In fact, there might be political benefit.
Yeah, at this point,
she's a huge liability.
And frankly, at this point, you could spin a benefit out of getting rid of her.
Well, the Epstein stuff was botched so hard, and when Trump came out and said it's all a Democrat hoax, it's like, okay, come on, but Pam Bondi was saying this is real, so how was it a hoax? You can steelman the point to the extent that release the Epstein files has now become a Democrat rallying cry. Now, do I think they're authentic in their motivations? No, they just want to get Trump. But who created that political liability? I mean, Donald Trump is in charge here, so he deserves accountability too. But nobody hyped it like Pam Bondi did. And she created what is maybe the most significant liability of his presidency right now. Now, he had campaigned on it. He has to have responsibility for it too. And frankly, it's the right thing to be transparent on this issue. But Pam, I mean, it's the classic. You can't oversell and underdeliver. And Pam Bondi's out there being hype girl and then saying that, like, actually the records aren't even real. It's one of the worst political botcheries I've ever seen.
So Trump can actually get out of this even easier by using Bondi as sort of the scapegoat out of this. Trump didn't actually campaign on the Epstein stuff at all. He answered 3 questions. He answered questions.
Okay.
No, he answered questions on 3 different occasions regarding it. He never brought it up. Never.
Okay, so all the clips are him responding, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all him responding, and even then, he's fairly wishy-washy on 2 of the responses. There's only one of them where he sounds fairly on board with like fully declassifying everything. And that was once again a response to that as a suggestion. It wasn't even his idea.
All right.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Thank you for the call. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. God bless.
God bless. Okay, that'll do it on calls tonight, live calls at least. Robert, do you have any thoughts on Pam Bondi and whether she should stay or go?
Remind me about this. So she talked about hate speech, but then she walked it back the next day. Is that what happened?
I didn't see the walk back, but she was on a podcast and she was talking about, this was after the Charlie Kirk assassination. And she said something to the effect of, we are going to crack down on hate speech, as in like your Democrats' inflammatory rhetoric is connected to the killing. And therefore, if you say stuff like, I don't know, you're a Nazi or you're this, whatever is subjectively defined as hate speech, she's going to crack down on that. I didn't see the walk back though. So if that happened, which maybe it did, it was a busy week for me. But even if it did, I mean, I guess that's better than not correcting the record, but it's still so disqualifying to me that a top lawyer would seemingly not know that hate speech is not a legal concept in the United States. Anyway,
to me of both legal and political incompetence, because legally, like you're saying, hate speech, of course, does not exist as a legal category, but politically speaking, because, she's a lawyer, surely she knows that hate speech is not legally recognized. But then she was using the political term for exactly what you're describing, this kind of inflammatory rhetoric and all that stuff. But like, it seems so politically unwise that somebody on the right would say that, because everyone on the right has been essentially persecuted for the last decade over this idea of hate speech. That, I mean, at the end of the day, she's not going to do anything because legally she can't, but it does speak of incompetence in her office.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how long she lasts. If I had to take bets on the first firing of has Trump fired anybody this term? Like anybody in his cabinet? Am I forgetting anybody? I don't think there have been any high profile firings.
I don't think so. No.
At least if there have been, they escape me. And if I had to pick anybody in the cabinet or any of these high level officials to go first, Pam Bondi is on the hottest seat to me. Or maybe not. I mean, I guess maybe I'm projecting my own analysis to Trump seems to back her every single time when he's asked about her. Oh, Pam's great. We love Pam. I've never actually heard him say anything bad about Pam other than the Truth Social post that went out before the Comey indictment that seemed like an email to Pam Bondi that was an accidental Truth Social post, or I don't know. But did you see that one? To Pam, go get Comey and go get Schiff and go get all these people. Do it now. Signed President DJT.
Yeah, Watergate on a tweet, apparently, as I was reliably informed.
Is that what happened?
Well,
okay.
Didn't Hillary Clinton say, imagine if the Watergate recording had just been publicly tweeted out? Something like that. You might want to fact check me. Yeah. But it's like, again, just it's so much nonsense that at this point I can't even be outraged by what they say. But yeah, whatever.
Well, let's get into some voicemails, and thank you to our live Discord callers. Appreciate you guys. But as a reminder, the voicemails are a new feature here. So it's in the same spot if you want to send an email to the show, as I mentioned at the top of the show. Instead of using that email box on the contact page of my website, just click the button to call the number, or you can dial it, type it into your phone, 406-312-5731. You can leave a voicemail for the show and we'll respond to them now. Now, I have a little bit of a backlog. Where are they? I got to pull them up here. Because I haven't taken them since that September 10th stream. So let's see, I got 4 of them here, and we'll play these and respond to them. When I get calls, I don't actually have names on who the callers are, although some of them choose to identify themselves. But we'll just call this person Caller 1.
If Charlie Kirk was the warm, beating heart of the conservative movement, then our enemies must prepare to face the cold, dark heart they left behind. The reality is, none of us are ready for what we must do. If you are a man under 40, you need to prepare yourself right now for physical, mental, and spiritual combat. You need to exercise and train. You need to read their books, not just watch YouTube videos calling them done. You need to pray and be with your family and not radicalize yourself. You need to remain quiet and prepare yourself for what is next. We don't need a bunch of mad people online. We need lawyers, judges, prosecutors. We need politicians, directors, and organizers. We need to fearlessly pursue greatness and never apologize. The only way to fulfill what Charlie was meant to do in his lifetime is to become a great father, husband, son, and leader. If you are not focused on these things, you are not ready for the fight.
Bingo.
I agree with that.
Good advice for all times, really. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, spiritually. You want to be as close to the best version of yourself as you could possibly be. But Robert, what I appreciate about that call is the call to remain in professional and academic settings, to fight for these places, to be a sane doctor, a sane lawyer, a sane professional in other contexts. I don't know if you heard what I had to say about my experience with the pediatrician at the hospital that I talked about on Sunday, but it's like every time you step into a place of supposed professionalism, it's full of insane people. That's largely because the strong male figure that this caller is talking about has either removed himself from those situations or perhaps more plausibly been removed through certain hiring practices or preferential treatment. But if you're in those places, please, and I know it's easier said than done. I have a job where there aren't professional pressures in that way to conform to certain ideological persuasions. But if you're in that sort of place and you can fight for it, please do. And I appreciate the caller raising that point.
Yeah, what a beautiful message and advice. By the way, there's research on this. Essentially, Christians sometimes will research this. How can they have the biggest impact for the kingdom? And one of the ways is to, number one, be excellent at whatever it is that you do and reach the highest office that you can within your field. And it's not because by reaching the highest office, then you will impose your beliefs on others. But what it does is it creates breathing room, if you will. Other people look at you and they go, wow, like, that person who is very high ranking in whatever field, they believe this way. So maybe it's legitimate. And I know that's not an entirely rational way of thinking, but people are not rational beings, really. And so, this is great. There would be research to back up what this person is saying. And I do agree. At the end of the day, that's how the left won. They conquered every institution. They conquered the law schools, so they got the lawyers. Because leftists, they're not just the lawyers. They are the law schools. They are the med schools. They are the media. They are everything. The only way this gets better is if we take all that back, but that will take decades. And so anybody, like, kind of to the caller's point, anyone who advocates for an immediate solution is lying to you. The solution will take decades. And if you're not in it for that, then you're really not part of the solution.
Even if you had an outright revolution tomorrow, or you had civil war where a separate country was established, yeah, I mean, the idea of just flipping the switch and turning it all back online, no, it's going to take a while. So, yeah. All right. Thank you to our first caller. Here is caller 2.
Hey, this is Zach Log the Great, and a new conspiracy theory just dropped. Matt Christiansen himself personally orchestrated the assassination of Charlie Kirk to drum up interest for the return of his Wednesday call-in show. It's the timing, man.
With any, I gather it's obviously a joke, but with any, of course, the timing did work out for my purposes. Anyway, I hate to joke in this context because it's such a terrible context, but to remove it from that specific context, whenever people have conspiracy theories, which of course I'm not trying to dump on conspiracy theories, a lot of them have proven true in recent years, but to me, the one argument that is almost always makeable, no matter what the theory is, it's some appeal to the timing. I think that's kind of the bit that he's getting at there, is like, oh, thing A preceded thing B, so that obviously must be intentional or for a reason and not coincidental. Again, don't get me wrong. It's not as though everything's a coincidence, nothing is related, all that. It's just, there's always a timing argument to be made. That is to say, something always has a timing relationship to something else. So if it's just like A preceded B, it's sort of like those unfalsifiable premises. Like, you'll always have that. Timing is not irrelevant, but if I'm going to entertain the theory, I need timing plus. Like, timing is, it's supplemental in your conspiracy theorizing, Robert. Do you disagree?
Well, he almost had me, but I did not hear how it is that Israel paid you to do this.
No, that was Russia. That was the Kremlin.
Oh yes.
I think it was. Well, no, it was. It was. Yeah, it was. It was Mossad through the Kremlin. Is how that worked.
Because like if the Jews or the Russians are not involved, then now this conspiracy is false. Sorry, caller. But no, but I agree with you. Frankly, the conspiracy theories about the whole Charlie Kirk thing, I have stayed away from them. Like I have purposely not listened to any of them because I mean, I'm gonna sound like a pearl clutcher, but I just like I'm irate by them. I can't take it. It's okay if they want to theorize about other things, but it's like, can we for once not just like take things for what they are? Like somebody.
Yeah, I'm not mad at anybody who's just asking questions about any particular story. I know that's kind of a meme and people say that as a negative, but the reality is you should question everything, and this is included. So I'm not mad at anybody who questions it on whatever basis they find suitable. But to your point, this is one case where I don't find the facts as presented to be hard to believe.
Yeah.
I find them pretty easy to believe. I think a lot of this gender delusion nonsense is motivating for the crazies who have been captured by it. And it's not just the Charlie Kirk assassination. It's what happened in Minneapolis just prior to that. It's what happened in Nashville. We've seen all sorts of these transgender episodes of violence that are supposedly so statistically rare, but don't really seem all that rare when you pay attention to them. I just don't, as presented, I don't find the story to be unbelievable. So this, I mean, I think the story as presented is probably true. It's a fairly straightforward, believable explanation to me.
Let me do one clarification. It very well could be that this individual was communicating with other individuals, like they might discover some Discord server, something like that. And I'm not discounting those things, but whenever are like the Jews killed him, it's like, what? Like
my favorite one of those is that the actual and to be fair to those people, I haven't read all your theories. Okay. I'm sure you have something to say this that explains it more than I understand, but the piece that showed the amphitheater venue there was supposedly shaped like a menorah. Did you see that one? So,
no.
So it's like the Jews picked a venue with just enough clue from a bird's eye perspective so people would know that they did it.
Okay, I take it back. That's out.
Like, did they contact this school in Utah and like who funded the building of the menorah venue that was designed specifically for the assassination purpose that would then be tied to Israel by only those with eyes trained specifically for this? I don't know. I actually don't know if the bird's eye view of the venue is legit in that way or not. That is to say, is that a fake Photoshop or is it actually menorah shaped? I don't know. That I have not looked into. So maybe the menorah venue people have maybe they're onto something. Because if that's true, I guess it's kind of weird. It's not like a way you would normally shape that sort of venue, I guess.
Man, they planned like ahead of time. Like
I don't know how long this op has been running.
Yeah.
And then anyway, okay. Well, thank you to caller 2. Let's get to caller 3.
Hey there, Matt. This is Kaiser and Gilroy, longtime listener, first time voicemail dropper. I was listening to your show about the mass pink slipping. All the pink slips are falling like rain for all the demonic people celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. Now, they didn't have to be this way. I have one solution to this problem. They could have just done this to themselves, by themselves, write it in a journal, dance around their living room for no one to see but themselves. But apparently these leftists, these deranged proggy demons, they seem to have a narcissist complex where they need to share everything online. And this is why it's happening. This is why you guys are losing your jobs, because you can't keep your freaking mouth shut about it. And now you're reaping the consequences. Remember what you said, actions have consequences. Well, guess what? Your action by just posting it on the internet for the whole world to see and losing your job is the consequence. Next time, don't put that shit on the internet.
I thought this was an interesting point because the question of like, can you just not? Like, can you just not for 5 seconds post like, I'm glad that someone was murdered? And the question is, why are you unable to not? That's a double negative. But you get what I'm saying. Like, what prevents you from having the restraint to avoid doing this sort of despicable behavior? And of course, we go to the politics of, well, they're just so politically rabid that nothing else matters to them. Even the basic morality of cold-blooded murder is wrong, that they have to post this political rabidity. Is that what is the state of being rabid? I don't know. They have to post their political rabidness. I'm sure that's part of it, but what he said about validation I find to be very interesting. And I've mentioned this on this stream many times, but I know that I do like social media, quote unquote, for a job, quote unquote. You know, I make fun of federal workers, but the reality is I'm the one with a made up job. So I'm not saying I don't use social media, because of course I do. But what I mean is I don't use it in a personal capacity. Like, I don't post photos of my family. I don't post the activity that we did today. Part of that is like, I just don't want, I don't want to put my family out there for people to, I don't know. I just want a certain level of privacy that I think any normal person does. But the other piece of it is that when you have a family, you don't seek other people's validation. And I used to be active on social media in that way, like, oh, look at the ice cream I ate today. I don't know if I did it that way.
Look at this fat.
The sort of stuff that annoying people post on social media. As soon as I got serious about family life, getting married and having kids, don't give a rat's ass about that, because I don't care what anybody else thinks of my life, because I don't need their validation. Yeah. And when you reject the fundamental premise of family, traditional living in that way, all of a sudden the usual places you get your validation, from your spouse, from your children, from your family, you don't have that because you've rejected that lifestyle. You seek out that validation elsewhere. And so what he's talking about there, I think, is a very interesting explanation for why these people can't help themselves. That they have to post their every ridiculous thought, including, I'm glad a guy got murdered, because their sources of validation are totally twisted because they've rejected the traditional source of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I fully agree. These people, they have no IRL community.
Yeah, that's true. That's what we used to call family. Now it's called IRL community. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, they're clearly not at the bar having a beer with their friends, because if they were doing that, they would be telling their friends, like, dude, I'm so glad that guy got killed, which would still be despicable. Like, I'm not making light of that, but it would be better. At least you're like talking to a real person and you're having a real connection. But because they don't have that, they just have to live off of, the likes on Twitter.
And there's some appropriate reservation in that too. Like, even if you have thoughts that are morally questionable in that way, when you have trusted friends or family that you can confide in and be like, yeah, here's what I really think. All right, we might question the morality of what you really think, but at least you're keeping it to an appropriate limitation rather than just broadcasting for everyone to see.
Yeah. I think what has been so telling in that whole thing is the fact that, let's take the caricature of the right winger. Let's, like, the far right that say wants to like get rid of the Jews or whatever, which is kind of a dumb characterization. But let's just take that. The guys who are posting that, the guys that are posting like, I won't say it for your, YouTube algorithm or whatever, but do terrible things to all the Jews or whatever.
Am I going to be in Raju Mahan's pilot program to be restored to the good people club?
You might have to be. Well, right. You see, those people, they're posting that on some anonymous account on Gab or whatever, because they know that if they posted that with their real face and address and job title, they would lose their job. But these left-wingers, like, they're so kind of convinced that the world is on their side that they're literally posting these terrible things with like job title on the description. Like,
yeah, it's basically on their LinkedIn.
Yes.
Murder appreciator.
Acme Inc.
Full-time.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
To me, that's the most telling thing. It's like, wow, like, these people really think that they're being like middle of the road.
Or, I mean, there's that. And their claim of supposed victimhood or oppression is obviously fraudulent, because if you have even the slightest fear of consequences, you don't post that insane nonsense. Certainly not with your name attached to it.
That's the thing. Like full face, name, company, the whole deal. It's like, wow, yeah, these people, like, they feel like they have fully won, and now they can say whatever they want to, and they're like shocked. I actually buy their surprise, by the way. I think they're legitimately surprised when
I think some are, yeah,
come their way.
Yeah,
and they're like, oh crap, like I thought like this was cool. We were all on board with this.
I got one more voicemail from the fourth caller is actually the same as the first, but these were a couple weeks apart, so I will allow it. And this one is about the message on the ice shooter's ammunition.
All right, I might ramble on this one, but stick with me here. One thing I think everyone's kind of missing about the ice shooter, I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and then you, Matt, and the Canadian dude, whatever his name is, both kind of made a joke about how it was lazy Fed writing on the round, the anti-ice. I think what people are missing is it I don't think it's a message saying, I'm anti-ice. I think it's a meme saying he turned his bullets into anti-ice rounds. I think from here on out, if we have anyone doing political shootings under the age of 30, they're going to use memes. Like, I think manifestos are done. I think, like, social media messages are done. I think with this generation, memes are the only way to make a serious point for a lot of kids. You know, they've seen memes used for political messaging, so that's the way they go. I just think this kid was lower IQ than Tyler Robinson, who obviously had a lot more coherent memes on his and more. So I think this kid just thought it was funny, ha-ha, anti-ice round. To this point, I think a lot of young people, especially like online leftists, have no sincerity to them. They don't believe in it. It's all cynicism or sarcasm. It's to kind of connect it to another issue. I think it's why a lot of people clowned on Erica Kirk for the, you know, her praying, her messaging, because they couldn't believe someone would be sincere about something, right? It can only be ironic. I saw Vosh accuse J.D. Vance of not believing in God because he solemnly said the Our Father. Vosh said, I think what he said specifically was, if this man really believed in it, he would proselytize, he would preach, he'd tell the American people to be Christian. Like life is one big show, right? Like you're putting on a performance all the time. Like a solemn prayer of deep held belief is so unrealistic to these people. So again, kind of a ramble, but I think it all kind of ties together a little bit in their psyche. So I don't know what you guys think about that.
Well, first of all, Canadian dude, whatever his name is.
How dare you?
Who is he? Skag 3? His name is Mark Aaron, and he's a good friend. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm not kidding about being a good friend. I'm not mad at you for forgetting his name. That's okay. I actually, Robert, I don't get the meme, which is how I know I'm too old for this. But I take his point that I think this meme style communication that's happening here is probably going to be a pattern. I just don't understand the meme of I'm turning the ammunition into anti-ice, or however he phrased it. I have a transcription here. What was it? Do you understand what that means in meme world?
No, that kind of lost me as well. Oh, man, we're boomers. But I do like some of his points.
No, we're not. Don't. Sorry to interrupt you. But whenever people say like I'm a boom, I know that you know this, so I'm not trying to correct you. But when people act like your generation, your generation is set. You know, I don't know your birth year, Robert, but I'm a millennial. I will always be a millennial, even when I'm old. You're talking metaphorical boomers. I know. I know that you know this, but I constantly see people say like, "Well, I've become a boomer." No, you have not. You will always be the generation. You don't move between generations. It doesn't matter if you're 1 day old or 100 years old. But I digress. Sorry, I've heard this lately, and I'm like Lawrence O'Donnell. Stop the hammering. I can't stand it.
I don't disagree with you. Our generations are set.
Thank you. But, it's very important.
On an unrelated note, on the Canadian on your show, I cannot believe that after your breakup with Blonde, no one has commented how then you brought in like a bunch of diversity hires. Like you have me, like you have the immigrant, and you have the black guy, and you have a Canadian, and like you have like one straight white guy. Like I love how you were like diversity hires. Hardcore.
I unironically have a diverse selection of friends.
Yes. How has no one? I think about this all the time, and I'm like, who's gonna comment on this? I guess it's me. We are the most diverse cast on podcast. Or
you know who we're missing though?
I'd like to say fuck you. It's not against the law, ho. Fuck you.
We need a woman of size and color. I'm missing that.
Yes, you've been quite fat phobic or whatever. But on the caller's message, you know, I don't know if you're familiar with the book The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. It came out years ago. But in Malcolm Gladwell, like he's kind of hit and miss. Some things he says are great and some are not, but whatever. In that book, he kind of shows several cases where there are these societal, like almost contagion events where something happens and it just catches on. And this happens in commerce and any number of things. And that's what happened with school shootings in the US. Like you pretty much didn't have school shootings, and then you get Columbine, and it was this tipping point. It just caught on. And other parts of the world don't have this issue. Now there are some exceptions, of course, but it became ingrained in people's minds, like as a young person, if you truly want to rebel, like maximum rebellion, what does that look like? It looks like a school shooting.
Yeah.
And I think the caller, sadly, may have a point that the whole idea of putting a message on the bullets themselves may be the next Columbine event, where like all of a sudden now what this like sending a message looks like, doing exactly that. I would hate for that to be the case, but I could see the caller being correct.
Yeah, I think there's probably some trend element to it. We've certainly seen this message on ammunition or guns becoming common lately. And whether it's in meme speak or not, the messaging on the weapons is definitely a recurring thing now. But thanks to our voicemail voicemail callers, really appreciate it, and we'll continue this going forward. You can leave a voicemail at your convenience. Again, just head on over to the contact page on my website, and you can click and call and leave a voicemail. Now, I've got a bunch of written emails too, since I've been off of that for 3 weeks, so we will get to those. And I know there are super chatters waiting too. So I appreciate your patience, guys. I'm going to get to super chats to close the show. I know you've waited a long time tonight, but I appreciate your support for the show and your patience. Robert, as always, I don't know, maybe like 10 email questions. So if you need a break or if you got to go, you just say the word, but otherwise I'll get through these.
Yeah, I'm good with whatever.
All right. Kitchen Sink says, adding to the discussion on the purpose of marriage. It's time to tap the sign again, Robert. Although I don't know if you and I have discussed this at all, but it routinely comes up. I think the goals of childbearing and bonding are biblically inseparable. Two sides of the same coin. Matt is correct that we still live under the cultural mandate, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. That's Genesis 2. The other side of that coin is the display of health of the covenant. The marriage is a picture of Christ and his people in covenant. The covenant between humans is strengthened by frequent marital sex and other forms of intimacy. God also designed sexual organs to be centers of pleasure and blessed sex in its bounds of marriage, even to the point of the Book of Song of Solomon is a book of ancient Hebrew erotic poetry, where two lovers wax poetic about how much it turns them on to drink deeply of each other. All of this builds a healthier marriage under which children flourish. Do you think, Matt, or your audience have been thinking about either or, have been thinking too much about this as an either or topic instead of both and? Okay, first of all, tap the sign. And I know you don't necessarily disagree with this, Kitchen Sink, but the defining feature of the male-female relationship is the production of children. I just tap the sign anytime this comes up, because it's my most controversial take, which either means that I'm a totally uninteresting character or the times are crazy. And saying basic things, I guess, seems controversial sometimes. Now, do I take your point and the point that many emailers have raised on this, that there are secondary benefits to marriage or secondary reasons that marriage is a good thing? Yes, and you should want and enjoy those things, of course. And I take all of your scriptural references to be correct and accurate. I'm not disputing any of those. But to me, this is still a question of what the primary purpose of the union is. Do we have children so that we can achieve personal pleasure, or is personal pleasure a nice byproduct of what is fundamentally about the production and the raising of children? The primary purpose of the union of man and woman is not, in fact, intimacy. It is not, in fact, personal pleasure. Those things have legitimate purpose insofar as they serve the primary function of building family. But we can't, I don't think that we should confuse which one of these is primary and which is secondary. And the primary purpose of that union is the production of children and the moral behaviors that surround raising those children well. And as far as the other things that we enjoy, companionship, intimacy, however else you want to characterize a nice personal relationship, well, sure. But why is marriage sacred above all other relationships? It's because of that defining feature. And without that defining feature of the production of children, there is no future, and humanity's purpose disappears. So I'm not saying I disagree with you, Kitchen Sink. I just think one is clearly priority and the others are primary and the others are secondary. But Robert, I don't know if we've chimed in on this before, and I assume maybe you have some thoughts on the scripture of this too. But do you disagree with my assessment on what the purpose of marriage is?
No, I really don't have much to add. I mean, it seems to me that in a sense you agree with the message. It's like, yeah, like sex has these other benefits and it's wonderful. But yeah, their primary purpose is producing children. And no, I really don't have much to add to that. It's hard to argue with that. It seems that producing children is essential and the pleasure is an accidental property. Essentially, you could remove pleasure from sex and the purpose of sex would remain. But if you remove the possibility of children from sex, then sex would fundamentally change. Yeah.
And I would grant the Kitchen Sink's premise and maybe a lot of the other emailers' premise. You use the word accident. I would grant the premise that it's part of God's design that you are to enjoy this experience, but properly directed and properly restrained toward its purpose.
Yeah. And I want to clarify, I was only using that like in the philosophical sense, like when you're looking at the ontology of a thing and you talk about its essential properties and accidental properties. Like accidental properties could be different, but essential properties cannot. Like if you get rid of it, then you get rid of the thing itself. But whatever. But I agree with you. I will leave it at that.
All right. I've radicalized you into tapping the sign. I'm sure there will be more sign to tap going forward. Thank you, Kitchen Sink. Matt Muslimson. I've moved on from being Matt Almost Christiansen to Matt Muslimson. Do you think the outrage that would result from overturning Obergefell v. Hodges would be greater than or less than the outrage from overturning Roe versus Wade? So, of course, we've already seen the overturning of Roe versus Wade, returning the abortion question to the states. Obergefell, now, Robert, do you know? I've heard it pronounced Obergefell. Are you authoritative on the pronunciation here?
I am the resident foreigner. I will not comment on pronunciation.
Okay.
But yeah, sure, I will pronounce it however you think is right.
I just think Obergefell is easier to say. Obergefell is awkward, so I'm going with Obergefell.
I would have said the latter. I would say Obergefell, but I'm probably wrong.
Well, my show is the epitome of pronunciation, so I'm going with Obergefell. Now, Obergefell is the decision that said that gay marriage is a constitutional right. What was that, around 2015, sometime during the Obama years? And so states actually don't get to define marriage as between a man and a woman, or however states might like to define marriage. Gay couples have a constitutional right to marriage per the I can't remember the reasoning. Was that an equal protection or was that a substantive due process case? It's been a long time since I've read it, but somewhere in the magical language of the 14th Amendment, there's not only a right to gay sex, there's a right to gay marriage in there too. And that's exactly what if not the founders, the ratifiers of the 14th Amendment post-Civil War intended. Legally, I think it's very clear that Obergefell should be overturned insofar as there's nothing in the Constitution to suggest that the definition and enforcement of marriage was to belong to the federal government and not to the states. So I think if the court were to take up this question, I don't know if they would do it, but I think for many of the same reasons that Roe v. Wade was overturned, Obergefell should be overturned. We'll see if that happens. The question of the political impact, though, I think like the rah, we're angry in the street protests would probably be very similar. But I think the political and legal impact would actually be drastically less. What I mean by that is, as soon as Roe v. Wade was overturned, you saw something like half of states restrict or eliminate abortion outright legally. It's very close to a 50-50 split as far as how that went by states. If you overturned Obergefell tomorrow and it was up to the states to theoretically ban gay marriage or say that gay marriages are not a thing in our state, I don't think you would get a lot of states actually doing that. Robert, how many red states do you think would say no more gay marriage? I would say, I would be confident in saying fewer than 10. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. I mean, that's hard to predict. Before that opinion, I mean, certainly it was a majority of states, if I'm remembering correctly, that made it illegal. So I would have guessed higher, but I could be wrong. Now I don't.
There's probably laws on the books that would become law. You're right. So maybe I'm thinking if all the legislatures in the states decided today and they didn't revert to old policy, that I think it would be a strong majority of states offering, if not full marriage, some sort of legal equivalent like civil unions or some sort of similar legal recognition of gay marriages or whatever term you want to use to describe them.
Yeah. But frankly, I don't think that the political backlash would be that huge because no one cares about gay marriage, including the gays. They don't.
Who cares?
Yeah.
The gays that don't want to get married, none of them have true marriages. They all sleep around. I don't know if you're familiar with this. It was a study done by two Harvard individuals, both of them gay, married to one another. They studied 100 gay couples to figure out if the stereotype of gay sleeping around was in fact true. And the number of couples they found to be loyal to each other was 0. Literally 0. Okay,
That's disgusting.
Were they loyal to each other while conducting this study?
I've wondered that, but I feel like the answer is obviously no. I mean, they didn't say that. They didn't go, yeah, we're also cheating on each other. But no, they essentially, I don't think anyone cares. I think this mattered because it was both a political club that the left was using that was very effective at the time, and they were actually after other legal rights, if you will. They were trying to secure equal legal status for a number of other purposes. Anything from health insurance to adoption of children. But if marriage itself went away, people would not realize those implications, and I don't think the backlash would be as huge.
We might find out. Wasn't there supposedly a challenge to Obergefell? I thought there was one in the works, but maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering.
I heard something about that as well. And yeah, in that case, by the way, is utter nonsense. I know we're trying to go through this quickly, but words like marriage have always been defined by the states, including, for example, the word property. So there is all sorts of federal legislation that regards or that interacts with the idea of property. Well, the feds don't even get to define that. The idea of property is defined by the states. The same is true with any number of other concepts, marriage being one of them. So no, this decision is completely out of line with the Constitution and all legal precedent before it. Like, it is clearly incorrect.
All right. Thank you, Matt Muslimson. Chief Justice says, are you familiar with the Am I the Asshole subreddit where people post conflicts they had with another person and Redditors vote on whether the poster or the other party involved was in the wrong? I think that it is actually a very informative subreddit on showing how people, even apart from any political angle, can view the same scenario in vastly different ways, and was wondering if you'd ever consider doing a segment where you read some of them and the responses. There's also a subreddit called Am I the Asshole Filtered, which only posts where vote results were close. Okay. I only dabble on Reddit sometimes in my lurking time, where I like to see what crazy left-wingers are saying about stuff. So I'm not an accomplished Redditor. So this is news to me. I don't know this particular area of Reddit, but it sounds like an interesting place. And even from just a unemotionally involved third-party analysis perspective, I just like when people are willing to be introspective, and it's an important skill for everybody to be able to consider their own roles in conflicts they experience. It's very difficult to do. I don't know that people actually enjoy doing that. I try to force myself to do that whenever I have conflict with another person. Is like, okay, chill out and just evaluate your own conduct and how maybe you could have navigated this a little bit differently, or if you could go back and change a step in your course of action, would you, and how might that have affected this? I find that thinking to be really interesting to think about, obviously, but I also think it's very healthy for people to engage in, just being introspective in general. But Robert, is this something you've encountered, the Am I the Asshole subreddit?
Yeah, there's some YouTube channels that will read these stories. That's the only reason I'm familiar with it. I haven't been on Reddit in years. Yeah, sometimes they can be eye-opening, right? Somebody goes, I did this. I'm not quite sure if I was right. It can be interesting.
You know what my Am I the Asshole would be? It's going to sound... I made a video about this back in like 2015, before I was like, I guess a full-time YouTuber or whatever it is that I am now. I always hand wash my car. I don't use like machines because I don't use the automatic car wash because it scratches up your car. Luckily, for the longest time, I've lived next to a car wash facility that has like a manual bays where you can hose it down, you can scrub it yourself. So I'd always go down there, but there's only 3 bays and it gets really crowded. So one day I pull in there and there's like 3 bays, but there's not a lot of room for the cars to maneuver. So there's a single line. And obviously the single line, when you get to the end of it, you're going to go to the next available bay. Well, I was up next and someone just drives around as though they're oblivious to the line, and they act like there's supposed to be 2 or 3 separate lines, one for each individual bay, and they pull into one of the bays ahead of me. So me waiting there for a half hour to wash my car was just sniped by some jackass who apparently thinks, I'm supposed to believe he just was mistaken and didn't see the giant line of cars that is waiting to get into these bays. But what am I going to do? Like, he's in there washing his car. Am I going to go fight him? No, I sit patiently in my car. Eventually he leaves and eventually I get in there. Now, when I get in there, this is the sort of thing where you have to swipe your card, and when you're done, you hit stop. And stop ends your car wash session and closes your transaction. This dude didn't hit stop. So I thought, son of a bitch, cut me in line. I'm getting the finest car wash this car has ever had. And I got all the fixins, I detailed that car. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there that long. It was probably 10 minutes. But my point is, I put the cost of the car wash on that dude's card because he didn't close it out. And I mean, strictly speaking, that's theft. I hope the statute of limitations has expired, even though it's only like a $5 theft or something like that. Maybe $10. I don't know. But what do you think about... I know, strictly speaking, that's wrong. However, do you understand the reason I didn't hit and end his session and start my own with my own credit card?
I can't understand how, when you were getting that tricolor foam on your car, was feeling really good about
cackling practically. Yes. And by the way, this was when I was about 25 years old. Okay, I'm a much more upstanding man now.
You'd get out and just beat him up, like.
Who's the asshole? The guy who... I think the actual answer on that is we both were assholes in our own different way. There's nothing that justifies me having a car wash on that guy's dime without his permission. It's stealing. It is. That's like the only time in my life I've stolen, but technically that was. Anyway, thank you for entertaining me.
Great story. compelling, and rich.
Let's get back to the email questions. Thank you, Chief Justice. Radio Shack. Radio Shack is still around, you know? There's still one in town here. You see a Radio Shack anytime recently, Robert?
Really?
Oh, yeah. We still have a Radio Shack.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I hope to get the word out. I cut part of this question off because he was just describing why he emailed. But, okay, the rest of the emails. I just tuned into the show live. I was late, so I didn't know what you talked about, but what didn't get covered. Anyway, hope to get the word out regarding the footage of the incident, this being Charlie Kirk. Watching the audience intently, you can easily identify two things. There are three people in different spots who all seem to, I think he means simultaneously, duck to the ground at the same time, roughly 4 seconds before the shot was fired. And in addition to that, you can see two individuals who point upwards and toward the building on the stage, looking like maybe they saw the shooter. So I wanted to inform others about this and maybe hear your thoughts if you have any. Thanks. Now, I've seen the close-up footage. It was sent to me, and I didn't necessarily go seeking it, but it was sent to me, and I've seen it. I also have seen the long footage. That's actually the first footage I saw was the long shot, and I saw, what happened, obviously what's in the video. That was enough for me. So I didn't study any of the behavior of other people except for, the subject of the video, which is the shot. So I don't know if I'll take your word for it that maybe there's some odd behavior there. The only behavior that I've seen that I found odd was that guy who turned around and started seemingly cheering, though he says it was just his military training on how to keep a crowd calm in a time of crisis. That was the only behavior that I've seen so far where I thought that something's up with that guy. But Robert, have you seen any odd behavior in any? I don't even know if you've seen any of the Charlie Kirk footage.
No, I frankly avoided it. I did not want to see that. Not that it's hard to avoid for me. Like I've said before, I don't have social media, but I mean, I suppose it's possible that a few people would have known that this is about to happen or something. I certainly hope that's not the case, that there were not multiple individuals involved, but it's not impossible.
We know based on all those transgender aligned accounts, there were people with knowledge of this coming. I don't think that that's even debatable. They were posting things that they were well beyond just like, I don't like Charlie Kirk. It was like, this is coming on this date.
Yeah, those posts, I've seen those, and it's hard to escape the conclusion that those people knew, that these people were communicating ahead of time, and it's so vile. But if that is the case, I hope that they're able to find a way. That by them, I mean the feds. I hope the feds are able to find this group chat, Discord server, or whatever the heck it was, subreddit.
Supposedly they are investigating. All right. Chris M says, hello, disingenuous faggot number 6.
Jeez.
I'm glad you made it back from the craziness. Well, thank you. Okay. Second point. Do you think the current escalation in open violence will start pushing Republicans into becoming the fascists that Democrats have been calling them for years? And was that the plan? And then another point, I feel an often misunderstood idea is that violence is the last resort, means that we should never be violent, whereas I see it as if I choose violence, it will be the end of the issue. And do you think progressives in the media may be about to realize the implications of that? For example, Hassan Piker told his fans to stop cheering Kirk's death because he would be next. Okay. To the first point or the first question, do you think this will push people into more fasci ideas or fasci perspectives? I think that's the fundamental question here. I mean, when I did the stream the night that after that happened, the question is, how do you defeat this evil without becoming this evil? And many are going to come to the conclusion that overwhelming force is the solution, or at least depending on the circumstance. And I can't blame them. I mean, when you are presented with a threat of force isn't just necessary, it's required. So how is that force going to be applied, and what are the proper restraints for it? Some people are going to opt for more forceful solutions, and I don't think that the circumstances that have presented themselves make that to be a crazy take. On the second point, now, is that the intent? I don't know that that's I think these people are just so ideologically captured that they believe that they are so fundamentally good and everybody who opposes them are so fundamentally bad. I don't think anybody's intentionally provoking the right to violence in that way, at least in a mass scale, but I don't know. I guess it could be possible. On the second point, I do agree that I don't think violence is justified by its placement in a sequence. That is to say, well, you resort to violence last. No, violence is justified by provocation or the circumstances that give rise to it. If I am presented with force will be the required response, even though in that case, violence would be a first response and not a last response. Because if you're presented with violence yourself, that is not just a justified reaction. It's what you have to do for self-preservation. So I certainly agree with your point on the sequence of events. But Robert, you think the people warning us about fascism are intentionally provoking others to fascistic perspectives?
We would never be so lucky. Like, I wish the Republicans were like 50% of what Democrats say they are. Like, really, sometimes when like the left talks about Trump, I am like, where can I find that guy? Because like, okay, cool. Like, let's vote for that guy.
Yeah, he's too busy praising Pam Bondi.
Yeah, but no, on a more serious note, no, I don't think so. I certainly hope that we don't fall into any kind of like real fascism, but I see no chance of that. And yeah, people who say that violence is never the answer should stop saying that. Now, that's not exactly what the email said, but it's kind of the same idea. Yeah, violence.
Yeah, he's critiquing that, or that violence has to be the last response. Yeah.
And that's obviously incorrect. Like, sometimes violence is the proper answer. Everyone knows it.
Well, our country was founded on such a principle. Yeah.
And if somebody was like attacking you right now, you would respond with violence. And by you, I mean everyone. Like, everyone knows that violence is, in fact, sometimes the answer.
Shout out to Raja Mahan. Trying to get in your good graces for the new pilot program, but we got to do what we got to do. Super Straight Nate. Not intending for this to be a gotcha question, but is it fair to say that you have, to some extent, changed your view on the morality of celebrating a political figure's death? I know that you've never celebrated anyone's death, but I recall the Matt and Blonde days when George H.W. Bush or Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. You acknowledged that there were people celebrating their deaths, but never referred to those doing that as quote-unquote demon people. Or does the fact that they died of natural causes at very old ages and they were involved in making actual policy that affected people's lives make it more acceptable to celebrate their deaths than commentators like Charlie Kirk? Well, I think you've made some important distinctions here, and I think that your characterization is correct. And so I don't recall personally celebrating death. I'm sure I've made maybe jokes that are tangential or something like that. But as far as like, let's have a sincere party about the death of a person, I don't know that I've done that. But if there are episodes of me doing that, I would certainly address those. And I know you're not saying that I did that, but I'm just speaking of thinking introspectively. I'm trying to reflect back on moments like that and try to remember how I responded. But it's been so long, it's hard to remember all the words or what the perspective was, of course. But I think the distinction that you raised about the type of death is important here. That is to say, okay, Ruth Bader Ginsburg or George H.W. Bush or somebody older like that dies. Yeah, I don't think it's morally good to be cheerleading that. It's one thing to make a joke or say like, I'm not sad about that, but to be like, yay, this is good. The difference between that and what I'm calling or what I've referred to as demon people is the celebration of murder itself. I mean, when there is a natural death, a life has lived naturally, died naturally, that is something close to or the playing out of God's purpose for that person. And that person has completed God's purpose. That person has moved on from this earth. That person's life was not taken from them by another person. And in the Charlie Kirk case, we're talking about straight up cold-blooded murder. And to celebrate that is not just to celebrate death, it's to celebrate crime. It's to celebrate people victimizing other people. And that's why, to me, the demon people characterization is more applicable. It's going beyond just the loss of life to taking life from other people is good. I like that. there are few crimes greater. There might be no crimes greater than cold-blooded murder. Some might make an argument for. You can make an argument there are worse crimes. There are worse ways to treat a person than just murdering them outright. However, it's near the top of the list. And if you're gonna celebrate that, if you're gonna have a party for the worst crimes that people can commit against each other, that to me is the demonic behavior. It's not just like indifference toward death. It's humans stealing life from each other is good. That's the demon difference. Robert, do you think that makes sense, or am I trying to use some kind of get out of jail free card here?
No, I think those are fair distinctions. I mean, I think we can properly say that sometimes we can rejoice at somebody's death, like this. Okay, like when Osama bin Laden was killed. Yeah, I think everybody was like, good. He got killed because he deserved to be killed. Like that was proper justice. And because we hate evil, I mean, or anybody who is good ought to hate evil, we're glad that whatever terrible evil this person was perpetrating now has come to an end. The distinction with Charlie Kirk is that even if you thought that his ideas were totally wrong, at the end of the day, you're still celebrating the murder of a dude that was just going to college campuses and talking. Like, and so that's the real problem here. And like you said, the manner of death also matters, because say like a political figure, like, whatever, RBG or whatever. Yeah, I mean, she had a catastrophic effect on this country, and then she died of natural causes. Like, I don't think it's wrong for somebody to be like, I am so glad that she's no longer affecting the politics of this country. Like, I'm glad she's dead in that sense. That's quite different from celebrating Charlie Kirk being murdered. And I would be saying the same thing if the person being murdered had been like Hassan Piker or whatever. It's like, no, we would not celebrate the fact that he got killed, even if perhaps we could be happy that his bad ideas are no longer having the reach that they have.
All right. Be Humble says, I don't want to live in a society that I didn't want to live in a society that tried to silence people for their opinions. Turns out I did. It just only happened to people with my opinions. I didn't want to live in a society that fired people for their opinions. Turns out I did. It just only happened to people with my opinions. Didn't want to live in a society that imprisoned people for their opinions. Turns out I did. It just only happened to people with my opinions. I don't want to live in a society that shoots at people for their opinions, but it appears that I do. It's just only happening to people with my opinions. At what point do we decide that if only one side is going to follow the rules, there are no rules, only self-inflicted handicaps? Now, I certainly understand the frustration about one side appearing to be amoral or immoral, not following the rules, and the other side at least trying, or at least acknowledging the existence of the rules. And I don't think that your frustration is wrong in that regard. I would question the conclusion that there are no rules on that basis. There are still rules, and these rules are defined by God, and there are people who correctly obey them, or at least try, and there are people who do not. The rules are they're moral truth that are much deeper than just self-inflicted limitations. That is to say, like human-defined things that we impose on ourselves or not. They're written by God. They're established by God, not people. And so I just want to be wary of the premise that, well, the rules as we understand them are only things that we decide, only things that we write. And if we think that these rules are no longer advantageous to us, or that the rules are unfairly applied to us, we'll just rewrite them. And the truth of the matter is there are no rules. There's just what we say the rules are. I don't think that's correct. I think there are rules to this world. I think they come above us and before us. We have an obligation to follow them, even if we think that, even if we're frustrated by bad people who don't. We have to take the hard path, unfortunately, of convincing others that those rules are worth obeying, worth following. That requires leadership. And yes, it does. When you're cornered and the people who don't obey the rules intend on taking your life for it, it does require the use of force where necessary too. But it has to be appropriately restrained by the recognition of those rules. Otherwise, we become the sort of amoral, immoral agents of chaos and anarchy that we're trying to defeat. But Robert, what do you think about that?
I really don't have anything to add. I fully agree with that. Like,
All right. I got the full Dave Rubin.
I agree with that.
It's true. In a sense, these rules are not up to us. Like, we don't do this because of how the other side will act. We do this because it's right. And kind of that decision that this is right, that's above us.
Yeah. Thank you, though. I don't want to sound dismissive, be humble. I get it. That's why I think it's so hard to navigate this. How do you defeat this evil without becoming this evil? And yeah, if I had the clean, easy answer to that, well, I'd be more articulate on it. It's not an easily answered question, but I just hope that we all stay connected to that truth. There are rules that we ought to follow, and we need to honor them.
Can I add one quick thing on some of the things he said there in his message, though? We should have been doing, and we felt to do, like the idea of like firing people over their opinions. Like, yeah, we want a very broad spectrum of opinions to be okay to say, but like, yeah, if somebody in your company is like, all Republicans should die, yes, we should have fired that person. And that's not immoral. Like, that is totally fine. It has nothing to do with the First Amendment. It's not illegal. Get out of my company.
Glee toward murder. I do agree that I would like a culture that generally is capable of entertaining a wide variety of perspectives, and is not immediately hostile to people who think outside the box. However, to your point, if we don't have a society that agrees on a fundamental premise, like straight up cold-blooded murder is generally bad, like what basis for community do we have if that premise is not agreed upon? If you think cold-blooded murder against people you don't like is cool, I have to think that you're a threat to me, or at least a potential threat, because the second that I'm not cool in your eyes, my murder becomes justifiable. How am I supposed to associate with you under those circumstances?
Yep. And there's nothing wrong or immoral to say it. I do not want to associate with you. Go away.
Yeah. Baseball American. Given the FBI's historic political leanings and hostility toward Trump, Kash Patel, and conservative ideas generally, how likely do you think it is that the FBI knew of Crook's plot against Trump? This was the Pennsylvania attempted assassin in 2024, or furry Trantifa plots to kill Charlie Kirk. Did the FBI know of these things and maybe chose not to act? Now, unless I would accept the premise that the FBI was just straight up in on these plots, which maybe it's not like that crazy of a concept, I guess. But unless there could be some demonstration of that, I would say pretty low probability that they had knowledge of these things and allowed them to happen. If I had to guess which one would be higher probability, I would say Trump, because we've seen plenty of FBI corruption against Trump. As far as Charlie Kirk, I don't know what motivation the FBI would have against him other than the FBI's general perceived loyalty to the Democratic Party and Charlie Kirk being a thorn in the side of that party. I would just, this to me is like the timing. I'm not saying it's like an automatically false idea. I need to see some substantial piece of evidence to entertain that beyond just like, well, these people are perceived as not liking Trump or not liking Charlie, therefore they had some prior knowledge. I don't know. Do you think there's any likelihood of that, Robert?
Not really. No. I mean, I think it's important to kind of not speak simply of possibilities, but what is actually plausible given the evidence. And we just don't have any evidence of that. And so, I don't think that we should be thinking about FBI involvement. And yet, I'm sure that 4 years from now, we will find out that in the Charlie Kirk assassination, actually, there were 275 agents involved or that were in plain clothes.
Fed.
They were just there for crowd control purposes. Haven't you heard?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, Baseball American. Organic Zed, last one. My wife and I are dealing with a defiant toddler son. He turns 3 in December. I was raised with spanking, but my wife was not, and she's against it. I'd like to avoid spanking if possible because of the potential CPS, Child Protective Services risks, that brings living in an authoritarian blue state. but my son is not responding to low force alternatives. Since you are now a father of 3, congrats, thank you. How do you handle this matter of child discipline when it comes to open and consciously defiant behavior? Well, first of all the best to you and your family. And I'm glad you're thinking carefully about these things. Everybody should. As a father, and I'm sure you would agree, Mr. Zed, our primary responsibility beyond just being providers is discipline. And what I mean by that is raising my sons to understand exactly what we were talking about earlier. There are rules to this world. They're not made up. You need to understand those rules before you go out in the world and interact with it, because if you don't understand those rules or you defy them, the world is going to kick your ass. And I know that there are hesitations, reservations about physical discipline. I think rightly so. It's not something anybody should want to do. But my whole perspective on that is, if I fail in my discipline such that my kids go out there without an understanding of the rules of the world and I allow the world to kick their ass instead, I have failed as a father. So that's my general thinking on the use of physical force. And when they get out of when they become defiant in the way that you're describing, they disobey mom or dad, that's some of the most fundamental behavior that has to be corrected. And eventually I'll teach my sons about more complex things they'll have to navigate when they're out on their own. But for now, when they're young, it's, you have to listen to mom and dad. You have to do what you're told. Yes, mom, yes, dad, no outbursts like you're talking about. And so how do I manage that now? Well, of course, my wife and I generally use countdown to timeout, as in what you're doing right now is not acceptable. So it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you're off to a timeout in your room, and you'll have to scream about it for a little while. And 99 out of 100 times that works. But there have been rare instances, like you're talking about, Zed, where it hasn't, and it doesn't. And there's a crucial lesson that is not being understood. And as I mentioned, it's my job to make sure those lessons are understood. So I have to consider what mechanisms I have to make sure those lessons are understood. That's my way of saying, have I spanked my boys before? Yes. Will I spank them in the future? If it is necessary. Because I'm not going to allow them to go into the world unprepared and confused and ready for the world to kick their ass instead. Now, of course, physical discipline comes with moral lines, moral constraints. So what are those? Well, number one, as you're talking about, deploy it only when necessary, as in, we just talked about how the use of physical force or violence is not justified by sequence. I think child discipline's a little bit different. It is a sequential thing for us, as in, I'm going to try to install discipline with the least forceful mechanism possible, unless I have to deploy more forceful mechanisms. So go with a sequence until the lesson is learned. Obviously, you don't create any permanent or long-lasting damage. I don't think a smack on the butt and some temporary pain is anything close to that, but obviously you don't do anything close to that. And lastly, because I'm saying the use of physical discipline is a necessary mechanism to make sure my child understands the lesson if he is not or refusing to, the use of physical discipline, I think, is properly paired with making sure verbally that the child understands that lesson. That is to say, before deploying that discipline mechanism, I'm going to tell him what he's doing wrong repeatedly. And then if the discipline mechanism is necessary, I'm going to have him repeat back to me several times what the lesson is. It's crucial that if you're going to deploy that sort of force, the kid is not confused about it and understands exactly what he did wrong and can tell you what he did wrong. Because that's the point of all of this, is to make sure that he understands the rule that he violated and to correct his behavior accordingly. Now, if your kid is too young to understand a lesson or repeat a lesson back to you, well, that's a good indicator that I think that the use of physical discipline is probably inappropriate. If the kid's incapable of doing that, don't do that. And lastly, for those we talked about this in prior iterations of the show a little bit, for those who think that there's some moral failure in physical discipline because it's violence, the child-parent relationship is fundamentally different than any other relationship. That is to say, the things you do to your kid from a disciplinary perspective are just things different than you would do to any other person. I wouldn't take possession of another person's property, because that would be theft. Yet I do that with my kids all the time. Like, You need discipline. That toy is coming away from you now. I wouldn't put another person in a timeout. That would be kidnapping. Yet I do that all the time with my kids to get them to understand a lesson. The point that I'm making is that every disciplinary mechanism that you deploy does inflict pain of some kind, and that is the point of it. It is to correct bad behavior. That pain might be mental, it might be emotional, or it could be physical, as we're talking about right now. But the pain is required to teach a vital lesson to that kid, to make sure he doesn't go out into the world confused about the rules of the world, acting like a jackass, and getting ready to get punched in the face. So that's my thinking on the use of physical discipline and its constraints and how this ought to be navigated. I hope that you and your wife are able to navigate this without deploying it, and you can get your kid to understand the lessons that need to be understood without. But I do not think that there are moral wrongs with deploying it within the constraints that I described. In fact, I think there are moral imperatives. You cannot allow the alternative of your kid failing to understand crucial lessons. That's failure as a parent. So those are my thoughts on that. And the only other thing I'll say to Zed is, as someone who has deployed that, as someone who has spanked, I've probably only had to do that 4 or 5 times for a 4-year-old son at this point. And I would hope the same result for you. When my son knows the consequences of misbehavior, disobedience, all those things, at least in the case of my oldest son, he has not really pushed boundaries beyond, what the boundaries that have been placed on him. So I hope the best for you and your wife. And thanks for asking me about it, because it's something important that we all as parents should think about. But Robert, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I have no wisdom on this matter beyond what you said. I think all that sounds really good.
Do you have, did you or do you have any, I assume you've thought about this like hypothetically, that is to say like, I guess, do you have a predisposition in favor or against spanking at all?
I'm for it. I think that just like you said, you don't actually like strike your child very hard. Your child thinks that it's like a big deal, but it's not really, you're not really like abusing your child in any way. And there's simply no substitute. Particularly when they're young, like I would never consider that for an older child. But when they're young, they're very much like reward punishment kind of creatures, like it's just how a young kid works. And so, yeah, no, I think that if it's necessary, like you said, not only should you do it, but you kind of have to, because the alternative is to raise a little hellion that will be himself miserable and will make your family miserable. So no, I really do agree with what you said.
I look forward to the era of philosophical discussions with my sons when they are teenagers or young men, and I can try to explain to them the complexities of the world as I understand them and help make some of the navigation of young adulthood a little bit easier than maybe it was for me or is for other people. I very much look forward to that, and I want that aspect of fatherhood. But to me, there's maybe no delusion of parenthood greater than the idea that I am going to have some sort of philosophical discussion with my toddler, and he is going to have some philosophical epiphany about the error of his ways. Thank you, Father Socrates or Aristotle, for explaining to me. The point that you're making is correct. That is to say that the language of young children is very simple, and you need to keep it simple. They need to understand the lessons they need to learn. A lot of that is verbal, and you want it to be exclusively verbal if you can, but fundamentally it's about making sure they understand the lessons. And if the lessons are not understood, you're not doing it right. So all the best to you and your wife, Zed. Okay, that's it on email questions. Appreciate everybody who sent in an email question. I know it's been a couple weeks you've been waiting for some of those. If you'd like to send an email question for the show, or again, call the show, leave a voicemail, contact page on my website is how you do that. And we'll be glad to respond to your messages in future Wednesday streams. But I have left the super chatters hanging this entire time, Robert. So we got to close out with super chat if you're ready for that. Let me see. I got to refresh over on YouTube and Tippy. While I do that, let me hop over to Rumble. Ninja Kitty Bonks My approach to debate is ask them to steelman the opposing view. If someone tries in good faith or fails to understand the opposition or is unwilling, I then know to start or if I should try. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of someone's understanding of the issue. You don't have to be the foremost spokesperson for your opposition, but if you can't explain their perspective, odds are you're not capable of the best arguments to defeat them.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Fair test. You're a trained legal mind, Robert. I mean, that's probably half your education and career is just advocating for things you don't necessarily agree with, maybe.
But in conversation, I find the best tactic is to ask them more questions before you even engage, because you can oftentimes undo their position just by asking questions. Like if somebody were to say, like, I'm glad Charlie Kirk is dead, before you even argue something, you might just ask, like, hey, what other people do you think should be killed for their opinions? Literally, just ask
do you have a
question.
list? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And you begin to they give you more and more information, and finally their own position kind of falls under its own weight. So just an aside.
All right. Friendly Neighborhood Fed. Happy furlough to all my fellow Feds. Well, there you go. You're the Fed listener that we were talking about.
Fed.
Thanks to everyone for the free paid after the fact vacation while the government is shut down. I'll throw a few extra shekels your way to show my appreciation. See, this is what I was saying. The Feds who listen to this show are like, yeah, this is awesome. Congratulations on your spontaneous vacation. And thanks for supporting the show. Dangerous Spaces, producer Tim says, just a reminder regarding Dems healthcare for illegals in the 2020 Democrat primary debate. All the candidates were asked whose healthcare plan would cover illegals, and they all raised their hand. I forgot about that. That was a real moment. And some of them had the hesitation to look around a little bit. Oh, man, everybody up here support. All right, I guess. That was God, man, I can't. The 2019 Democrat debates where there were like 50 of them on the stage and they were all trying to out jackass each other. You had Cory Booker and Beto debating in broken Spanish to appeal to these. What a show that was. So 2028 is going to be great. Now, I think that JD Vance has to be your assumed 2028 Republican nominee, but maybe that fight will be more interesting. The Democrat primary in 2028, 2027 leading into it, that they have no clear leader again. So this is going to be a disaster again. It's going to be a great show. I can't wait.
I don't even know who will be the cast of the show. Like I do not know who will be in it. And
I should be careful what I wish for, because we all saw the end of the 2019-2020 Democrat primary and presidential election.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
So maybe I don't want to see that show again.
I want to say Beto O'Rourke, in fact, offends me. Like he's like the only individual on the face of this planet that I'm like, you're legit racist. Like
he is an actual cultural appropriator.
Yes, yeah. He's an actual cultural appropriator. It's like, yo, you're not Hispanic, which is fine. Like, be who you are. But this act kills me.
Yeah. Ramsey. Oh wait, Dangerous Spaces also said the government shutdown talk makes me think of the really frustrating people living paycheck to paycheck talking point. It's always sold as poverty. Nope, some people are just bad with their money. The reality is, and again, I understand economic times have been very tough in recent years because of inflationary forces and other nonsense from the government. So I'm not saying like, oh, it's all, there's been bullshit put on everybody. Don't get me wrong. However, whether you're making $1 million a year or 10 grand a year, whatever your circumstance may be, it is still your responsibility to live within your means. And even if you have a good paying job with the federal government, maybe you're making 100 grand, 200 grand, whatever. Okay, you still want to adjust your lifestyle for the assumption that that job might disappear at some point. Because it could. Maybe you, like, instead of having a mortgage that is X, maybe you need to plan for your job situation not being that, and maybe you go with X minus 10%, minus 20%. I just have no sympathy. especially given the cushiness of federal government jobs. I have no sympathy for these claims. Like, if you earn 10 grand a month and you spend 9,900 of it, maybe don't. Like, live a little more modestly. I don't know what to tell you. Okay. Ramsey says, I'm getting full custody of my son this weekend because my ex can't handle a boy becoming a teen. Praise God, but pray for us. It's been 5 years since we had more weekends together. Well, all the best to you and your family, and I hope the best in the situation, and certainly I hope the best with your ex and the boy's mom too, and hope for resolution there. But being closer to your son is, of course, a gift, and I'm glad to hear that for you. Thank you, Ramsey. Dangerous spaces. These moron Dems need to look up the Streisand effect. For the unfamiliar, it's trying to stop a thing from receiving attention, but highlighting it actually increases the attention that said thing gets. Yeah, that was her like beachfront mansion or whatever it was. I can't remember.
Yeah,
she didn't want people taking pictures of her house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sorry, what was the chat about? Like the Streisand effect applying to what? I missed
the Democrats, but I guess what are they trying to hide right now? I don't know how it applies to what Democrats are doing right now, hiding stuff and people looking into it.
Maybe it's about the memes, because it's like, I wouldn't know about the memes, but now I'm like, wow, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I guess it's a Streisand effect variant. You're trying to condemn something, but you're making it seem more cool. Ramsey says, feeling blessed, I'd figured I'd pass it on. Radicalization has only begun with Charlie. History tells us things outside the spirit changes hearts. Outside of the spirit changing hearts will get much worse and soon. Well, to the extent that people intend on deploying force to enforce their worldview, I mean, as we're talking about tonight, force is the response that is compelled. So I wish these people, like a toddler, would learn their lesson more easily. But they appear not to do that, and so you have to be prepared for sure.
You know, I hope this doesn't happen. I'm not saying this will happen, but if things continue getting worse, then it will break the whole American experiment. Like, essentially freedom of speech, for example, will go away. Because let's say that you have all of these cells around the country that are pushing hardcore, like communist beliefs or socialist beliefs or whatever. And these people are actually going out and killing people. Like, societies reach a breaking point. There will come a point where we go, you know what? You're not allowed to talk about that anymore. Like, you're not allowed to push communism. Ideologically, you're not allowed to talk about it. And people will go, well, what about the First Amendment? You know what? We don't want people getting shot. So screw the First Amendment. And that's the great loss, I think, that could happen. I'm not saying it will, but it could.
Yeah, I will always remember the quote that's attributed to John Adams, rather. I believe it's correct, but the idea that our Constitution is meant for a moral and religious people. That is, people have a right to these things that the Bill of Rights recognizes, among them your right to free speech, of course. But the point is, the recognition of that depends on a society and a culture that also recognizes it. And if you are among people who think that you should be shot for your thoughts, that's the sort of immoral, non-religious people that I think John Adams was talking. Like, liberty cannot survive with those people having influence or having control of at least certain institutions or certain sectors of society. So, again, people who insist on force will be met with force. I think that's where we're going. So, a moral and religious people generally don't insist on force.
That's right. And we could sacrifice liberty for safety. And yeah, if more people get shot, like, I mean, if it becomes commonplace, people will do it. People will go screw the First Amendment or whatever else, but this has to end.
Thank you, Ramsey. Ninja Kitty Bonks also says, having children is simultaneously the most selfish and selfless act a person can do. Kinda. I've heard the accusation that it's, well, I guess I've heard the reverse accusation that not having kids is selfish. But I see what you're saying, like, selfish insofar as, I guess you're building your own little universe there and you don't care about anybody else. But I don't know. I mean, I think that's kind of the point. I don't. Do you feel like you get what he's saying there, that it's selfish and selfless?
Yeah, I get it, but I would rephrase that to say it is the most selfless and at the same time personally rewarding thing that you can do. Because just because something is personally rewarding, it doesn't make it selfish.
Yeah, well, and that's I've thought about this a lot because in prior years of my life, I would not have agreed with the idea that you have a moral, I don't know, maybe obligation or responsibility is too strong of a word, because I know that having children, some people can't for whatever reason, or the circuit, just, some people don't. However, to view it as selfish, as in like only serving me, well, there are how many generations of people behind us that made us, and to just think like, well, the reason they suffered all that and did all that was so I could sit and like play Xbox, or I could have like a stupid stream on a Wednesday night or whatever. No, I am the product of so many generations that came before me, and I have a responsibility to them to do what I can to carry them on into the future, so that all this was for something. So it is all pursuant to a purpose. So that would be my response to any kind of selfish claim, is like, nope, there was a lot of sacrifice to put everybody here, and you kind of owe it to those people to honor them. It's a good thing to do.
Yeah, I agree.
But okay, Ramsey says, book recommendation: Toby Sumpter's Blood-Bought World and Fox's Book of Martyrs. All right, I don't know the books, but I'll take your word for it. Thank you, Ramsey. Dangerous Spaces also says, the frustrating thing about Charlie Kirk's assassination is all the people saying it's like political violence is bad, but he said hateful things. Don't things like that sound like justification? Well, yeah, it's like, I don't care if he said, you talk about people getting fired for saying like, I like murder, Robert. Even if Charlie Kirk got up there and said, I like murder, it's cool, it actually still doesn't justify his murder. Like, it's still an opinion. Now, we might call it like a morally awful opinion, and I would agree with that. But there is no such thing as an opinion that justifies murder. That's not a thing. Yeah. So the murder's bad, but he said stuff. There is nothing he could say that is relevant, that changes the statement murder's bad, or adds any qualifying factor to it.
Yeah. No, agreed.
He also says, do you remember the caller from a couple years ago who accused you of child abuse for using spanking? I remember, and I think that was one of those calls where I was probably a little short. Some callers have pissed me off in the past, and that might have been one. I think I got my monthly call right after I had to listen back to figure out why you were mad. I remember being pretty mad about that one. And if you're that caller, odds are you're probably not listening to my show. But if you happen to be, handshake through the internet, bygones are bygones. I don't hold any ill will. I understand why people are resistant to it. I mean, we don't want violence. We don't want physical force. But if there's anything I want less than that, or anything that's worse than that, it's jackass sons who are completely unprepared to live healthy lives in this world. Won't tolerate it.
And also, people who like go as far as to say that it's child abuse, I do feel like they're neglecting all of human history. It's like, just because millennials pretty much decided that it wasn't cool, do we have to elevate it to child abuse? Like,
I think it can be if there, there's a sort of long-term or permanent damage like we're talking about, but a spanking in the traditional sense, no, of course not.
But that's what I mean. It's like parents have been spanking their kids for all of eternity. Cool, like you're more enlightened or whatever and are not going to do it. Fine, but like treating this like child abuse is to ignore, again, all of human history. I find it a bit extreme.
I think the caller that he's talking about was before I had kids too, so that I was a hypothetical child abuser at this point, which maybe is why I was mad. I don't know. I wasn't even a real one. I was a hypothetical one. Ramsey also says, Dangerous Space is spamming the dollar rants. Beat your bad children. That's the way it works, I guess. Thank you, Ramsey. Dangerous Spaces also says, but spanking teaches your child to solve problems with violence. If your child grows up to think that smacking someone's ass solves a problem, there's clearly been some larger parenting fails. Well, that's exactly the point too that I made about whenever you are imposing your strongest forms of discipline, and maybe you don't think spanking is appropriate, I still think it's crucial from my own parenting philosophy to explain the lesson to the child and have the child be able to repeat it back to you after the discipline has been administered. Otherwise, there is the sort of confusion they're talking about, because they might think that hitting someone in the ass solves a problem. Or do they think kidnapping someone and putting them in a dark room solves the problem? No, the point is the lesson, not the disciplinary mechanism. And so the child has to be able to understand the lesson. Okay, good on Rumble. Thank you guys over there. YouTube and Tippy, thank you for being patient over there, guys. Appreciate it. Joshy boy. Hello, Joshy. I need one of you to put on a hat so I can actually see the show. Okay, Joshy, I have your hat on standby. So I know it's like pretty much the end of the show, but I can do that.
I just want you to know that you cannot see the first letter in the hat, like in this recording. There you go. But when you turn your head, all you see...
There's no K. I see. Right. Yeah. Well, okay. Just to be safe. This hat doesn't fit at all. It's like made for someone with a tiny little... I don't know. It's just way too small. I'm not hating on your merch, Noah, but it's not... What the... Dude. This is a disaster. Sorry, Joshy. I understand your complaints, but we're going with it. Long Dong John... I swear I'm seeing double right now. Yeah, this is what I worried about. But that's all right. Grim Turd, been a while since I watched the stream. Congratulations on expanding your family. Also, shaving one's head to accept the inevitability feels good, especially in the summer. I miss the Twins cap despite the poor season. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We love you. You're very special.
Yeah, it's one of those things that once you do it, as I'm sure, well, obviously you experienced, Robert, like, because I know you had the long flowing hair when you were a young man, because we looked at it on your motorcycle trip page. It's I don't know what your experience was like. It's an intimidating step to take, but once you do it, it feels so relieving. For me, I kind of knew I was going to do this, but I needed that August break, because it's like, I need to get used to this before I can feel comfortable in front of people this way. But did you have a similar experience like that when you made the plunge?
I lost my hair when I was so young. I was like 23, and I already was essentially kind of at your stage. Now, I didn't go to like fully shaving it off, with a razor blade until maybe... I don't know. It's still been many years. I don't remember.
Do you use like a razor blade, or do you use one of those shavers, or what's your strategy?
No, just the same razor I used to shave. Like,
do you do it every day?
No, I do it once a week. I'm super lazy. But
okay.
I do it on the day. Like if I'm gonna co-host for your show or whatever, I do it so I look decent. It's not...
How hard is it to get like the back and stuff with just a razor?
Honestly, it's really easy. The first few times I did it, I was very nervous. I thought I'm gonna cut myself and all that stuff. It is a non-issue, and after you've done it a couple of times, you don't even think about it.
Well, thank you, Grimturd. And I might deploy the old Twins hat once in a while too. It's not gone forever. I'm just trying to reestablish myself as full dad mode. So getting back into it a little bit. Honest Joe Biden, just give the undocumented brown Americans healthcare, you silly Republicans. I'm getting my pension right now, but come on, man. Where's my Biden button? There it is. Come on, man. Right. Give him credit. Thank you, Honest Joe Biden. I like your new portrait in the White House. Griff Nizzle, just to be clear, or just to clear the air, I wasn't calling your kid a transmission. Oh, this was the other day. We were talking about trans Lex Luthor. I was calling the bald Fago that can't grow a proper beard to save his life the trans Lex Luthor. Congrats on number 3 spawn. So I assume you're referring to me. Jeez. Listen, I don't demand to be viewed as the best looking man on the planet, but I don't look trans. All right, I don't have the greatest beard of all time, but nobody's looking at.
And
I'm not.
Think you're trans bald.
Well, yeah.
So,
all right.
I stand by this.
Listen, I've been ridiculed as gay my entire tenure on this stream. A trans I won't stand for, though. Thank you, Griff Nizzle. Orthodox Christian Andrew, I had a dream last night that all the gays in the world disappeared at once, so I decided to call you and tell you about it. I must have been the last remaining gay. But you didn't pick up, and I didn't hear from you ever again. Well, that doesn't sound like me. But if that happens to you, you can leave a voicemail and I'll play it on the show about
I think
your
he's calling you gay because all the gays had disappeared and he called you and you didn't call him back.
Oh, okay. Is there some layered joke here? I don't know.
Yeah, you were one of the gays who disappeared.
Oh. Thank you for explaining. That one escaped me a little. See, sometimes the high-level jokes, they're over my stupid head. My trans bald head. Orthodox Christian Andrew, there you go. Robert has your back. Thank you for supporting the show. Injured Guardian, strangely, no liquid hero soap is listed online. Are they out of liquid soap? Also, with the hair change, you now need a hat sponsor. Congrats on the third boy. Buy good knives. That's always good advice, too. I could do a hat sponsor. I don't know. Does no one need promotion? I don't know. I wonder. I'll have to talk to the guys at Hero Soap. I don't know if liquid soap is just on pause or what the status of it is. But thank you for the information, Ryan Allen. I think he means anti-ice round, like the one would have an anti-tank round. Okay, so like maybe in like a video game setting. You have ammunition types that are anti-X, Y, or Z, armor, anti-certain properties of your enemies. Yeah, okay, so if it's like this is a video game type thing, well, this is the special anti-ice ammunition that you get in that certain drop or something like that.
That does make sense.
Okay, that makes a little more sense. So thank you for that. I understand what he's saying now, I think. Celebrated end or not, Susan sucked.
I agree with
Poor
that.
Susan, man. I actually, I learned of the Susan Wiki death when I left the Trump rally in Bozeman in August of 2024. So we came out of the Trump rally and there was so much traffic that I was just sitting in my car looking at news and stuff. And people had emailed me, Susan Wiki died. That came out of nowhere for me because I didn't even know she was sick. But obviously she had stepped away from YouTube at the time.
Yeah.
But I was totally shocked when Susan Wiki died. So, anyway.
I think she got sick and then she went downhill very quickly. Right? Wasn't it like cancer or something like that? Or...
Yeah, she stepped away, I think it was February, and then died in August. Something like that. So, Joshy boy, sometimes you just need to be the scourge of God when evil runs amok. We had this point on the stream after the Kirk assassination, Robert. I had raised that question, like, how do you fight this evil without becoming this evil? And a caller said something to the effect of, well, by fighting this evil, you are by definition not evil. What do you think about that concept? That is to say, like, if you are conclusively fighting evil, there isn't really a such thing as moral constraint, or there aren't really rules insofar as what you are fighting is evil, so it must be defeated by some sort of moral requirement, I suppose. To me, that I guess that kind of makes sense. It's just the problem is, how do you definitively identify without any error who is and what is the evil? Because if you make any mistake in that identification, you are potentially committing very immoral acts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, number one, the end doesn't justify the means, right? So even as we fight the evil people, we still have to fight them the right way. So, and I don't think that the caller meant what I'm about to say, so I'm not putting this in him, but like, we can't say this person is evil, so we must destroy them by any means necessary. Like, no, I don't think that is the case. However, to the caller's point, it's sort of like what we were just talking about with, we should never celebrate someone's death. It's like, really? No, yeah, like there are times that we should. Like, let's give the Hitler example, right? Since we're on the internet. If Hitler got killed, we should all be like, good. Like, he was genociding a bunch of people. It is about the substance of the situation. And should somebody lose their job for something they said? Well, if what they said is, I only believe in two genders, no, they shouldn't be fired for that. But if somebody says, yeah, I hope that Republicans get murdered, they should. Again, it goes back to the substance of things. So I feel like people are trying to make categorical statements about This is never right. That is never right. And it's like, again, let's be more careful. It very well may be right in some circumstances and just not in others.
Thank you for the thoughts on that. All right. Purpose of the ages, please stop talking about your hair. The amount of time I'm already thinking about your grooming decisions has me seriously questioning my masculinity. Is it gay that I want Matt's hair back, or is it more gay that I care?
It's the most goddamn faggy thing you ever seen.
Yeah. No, I promise I'm not going to bring it up all the time. I think the reason I found it fitting to bring it up tonight is because Robert and I have not streamed together under these new hair circumstances. So I thought, well, I better get that out of the way because that's going to be kind of an elephant in the room. Do I plan to do this all the time going forward? No, it's going to be the new norm going forward. But I also like, part of being comfortable with it too is like making jokes about it. And so I don't want people to have the impression that like, oh, I'm so nervous and uptight about it. Please don't make fun of me. This is all going to normalize, in the coming weeks. You're probably right. I probably have already gone far beyond the expiration date on the utility of these jokes. But what the hell is my show if not for duct tape and burying jokes deep into the ground, far beyond where anyone could ever recover them? That's all I do. So, there'll probably be a few more hair jokes from time to time. But thank you, Purpose of the Ages. Appreciate it very much. I think we're all set, Robert. That's a 3-hour stream I didn't necessarily intend, but I've been doing a lot of those lately. So when you got a lot to talk about, that's not necessarily a problem. All right. Anything else you want to mention before we're out of here?
No, this was a lot of fun, and thank you to your audience. And yeah, it's been great.
All right. Well, thank you for being here as always. And thank you all for tuning in tonight. Appreciate our live chatters, super chatters. Making the live show a success. If you're listening on demand later, thank you kindly as well for tuning in and for supporting the show. Thanks to Robert for sitting in tonight. Thanks to our callers and our emailers for their contributions to the show. Thanks to producer Tim for keeping things running as always. Find everything show related at mattchristiansenmedia.com. I'll be back on Sunday. Have a great night.